This is the chance where the understudy gets to star in 42nd Street. There was no way I was missing that. Unfortunately for tonight, too, this is the night when your calls are the stars. You are telling the stories tonight as we go ghost to ghost. Looking for the best ghost stories, true ghost stories. So, it will be incumbent on you to not only be truthful in these recollections, because that's what makes them so much more enjoyable, but also to present the story well. So, as we will look forward to getting to so many of your calls coming up tonight, just keep that in mind, that you need to maybe give us the zippy version of the story, as opposed to maybe presenting it around the campfire as you usually do, might take on 2 or 3 acts. Get to the good part soon, as quickly as possible. Introduce as little as you need to introduce, and then get to the meat of it, if there is any meat left on the bones, that is. And we'll all enjoy that, because it is Halloween night. And I've already put up some fun links on my blog in relationship to Halloween, a couple of follow-ups from last week, and a couple of fun photos. Please take a look at coasttocoastam.com and link up from there. There are also some very ghostly images waiting for you at coasttocoastam.com. And speaking of ghostly images, we'll start the show off before we even get to any of your calls yet with an update on a photo that we had put up before on my blog. In fact, I gotta remember, actually, I don't know if I sent it through to the webmasters or not, so I'll go ahead and put that up on my blog right now too. But a photo about a little girl with a ghostly image of her grandmother overlooking her shoulder. I want to reference back to that story. It's from a few weeks ago. We'll get to that, plus some ghosts of tasty Canadians on the way this hour, as well as all of your calls as we go Ghost to Ghost AM. This is Ian Punnett. Just making a last-second correction to the blog at coasttocoastam.com, because I got Matt Allen here. He's the late afternoon drive host, 6 to 9. Matt, is that what you do on WPRO AM, the Coast to Coast affiliate?
That's it, Ian, absolutely. 6 to 9 p.m. every night, every weeknight.
Okay, so am I interrupting any of your happy Halloween activities? Or?
No, actually, it's pretty late, and I'm ecstatic to be able to be here on Ghost to Ghost. This is like a legendary radio show that my whole family, believe it or not, has listened to for many, many years. I get to be on it, so I'm kind of geeked out right now.
Well, first of all, I just want to say, really enjoy your show. I caught it when I was out on the East Coast not too long ago, and you're such a nice guy that every time I see your picture on the website looking like you're about to kick somebody's butt, I'm thinking, is that the same guy I met? I mean, everybody got to fold me in half, and I remember it's like having a nice conversation with him. So.
Everybody says that to me, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to put forth an image that really doesn't accurately portray me.
Yeah, could it be the scowl? I don't know. Could it be the, excuse me, you're parking in my space kind of look that you have on the So, let me just say, I posted this photo, and I'm going to post it up again because I meant to do it earlier, so I'm doing it right now. This photograph of this little girl, and it's on my blog if people want to catch up to it. I think it'll be up there in a second. At coasttocoastam.com. It's the first link. I put up a couple of links, but it's the first link now that I just posted. This is the image of this little girl with her grandmother over her shoulder, that was sent to your show. You were the first one to show this to me, and then about a week later I posted it during on my blog. We talked about it during Crypto News. So talk about this. Who sent you this photo? What do you remember about how you got this ghost photo before we start taking calls tonight for Ghost to Ghost?
Well, what happened was this actually came into one of our colleagues in the building where we work, and was kind of spread around the building. And the story that was told to me was that this was a person, a young woman who lived in Rhode Island, who I believe still lives in Rhode Island, and this is her niece. And it's kind of, I say niece, but I think it's kind of like a second cousin type of thing, if you call your older cousin the uncle or aunt because they're older than you type of thing.
Sure.
But so it's a relative, and she was by herself. I think the little girl was at the time 3 or 4 years old in the picture. And I believe they were just kind of, she was babysitting in the middle of the day and just messing around with the camera. It might even be a cell phone picture, to be honest with you. I can't quite remember now, but it was a digital photo of some kind. And the person, there was nobody else in the house with them. They were by themselves, and they took the picture and kind of forgot about it. Now that I'm talking about it, I do recall being a cell phone. And so they took this picture. You know, she kind of just, cell phone just was, you know, closed, and that was it, forgotten about. And then later on, when the cell phone picture was downloaded to a computer, you get to see that picture and that woman's image in the upper left-hand corner there, who, you know, according to the young lady who took the picture, she's assuming it's an elderly relative of theirs that passed away, a grandmother, a great-grandmother. But she said because based on the actual clothing there, but because the face is so hidden by the little girl's hair, she can't even be 100% sure of that.
Well, and just for people who are just hang on a second, just for people who are tuning in, I just double checked it, and yes, you can go catch this photograph right now. If you go to coasttocoastam.com and then click onto my blog, it'll take you to the first link of this ghostly photo of this little girl in this grandmotherly image that's up over her shoulders. Go ahead. This is Matt Allen of WPRO AM. Go ahead, Matt.
And you know, just the interesting things about it is that there are, you know, I'm sitting here looking at it on my iPhone, and I can blow it up on the iPhone a little bit, and kind of look at it. The eyes have a very remarkable resemblance between the little girl and the grandmother, or the grandmotherly figure, and the figure in the background, while it reflects the light source that's in the room, almost seems two-dimensional, like not human. It doesn't have a warmth, the human warmth to it that the little girl does. And you know, we've had some listeners of mine, when I put it up on my Facebook page, they went on there and looked at it, and some of them are very competent in Photoshop and whatnot, and have commented that, you know, if you're going to do something like this, the little girl's wispy blonde hairs that are in front of the old lady's face are extremely difficult to do with any sort of accuracy or any sort of, you know, competency.
Right, because it would be too fine in the Photoshop, I would think. And I was looking at this too, and there's something interesting that both her eye and then the eye of the grandmotherly image, and that's what this is. This is the face of her grandmother behind her.
That's not so much her grandmother. Almost, I think, it might be her great grandmother's.
Or her great. Both of their eyes are focused on the same thing.
Right.
If it were just a digital fluke, if for some reason some of these pixelations existed and then they came together on this, I mean, I don't even know how that's possible, but if it were just some sort of technical error or programming mistake or something that in the cell phone that allowed for these two images to be captured together at the same, what are the odds that they would both be focused in the same way at the same place? You know what I mean? I mean,
you're absolutely right. It's a very bizarre picture, and what's interesting about it, I think, is that the similarity in the eye of the little girl and the eye of the old lady. Actually, I've had some listeners actually even just kind of speculate that it could actually be an older version of the little girl, kind of a future type of version of the girl, maybe coming back to visit in some kind of time warp thing. Some people have said that.
Okay, that maybe that's because the eyes look identical. It's her of the now and then her of the future.
Yeah, some people have speculated that.
Okay,
that's interesting, but you know,
it's pretty tricky. But whatever it is, it's a cool shot, and I think it's the kind of thing that you look at it and you try to come up with an explanation for how it could have been captured on a cell phone camera that way.
Yeah, right. But you know, they say that the clothing, the pattern of clothing, I guess, in the background is something that was indicative of the elderly relative, great grandmother of somebody, and she had passed away, I guess, not too in the distant past, before then, and so they kind of look at this as, I guess, a visit from beyond.
Very interesting. Matt Allen is the late afternoon drive host, 6 to 9 WPRO AM in Providence, Rhode Island. I've put up a photo on my blog, coasttocoastam.com. In fact, I may even have the webmasters go ahead and move that photo if they want to capture it from my blog and put it up on the main page for everybody to get a better look at it. Please go ahead. I the last second happened to put it up. And thank you, Matt, for joining us. And did you ever hear back from the family or from the people that sent that photo in? And was there ever an update from them?
I think it did like a couple rounds at some of the radio stations that are in my building, and then that was it. They kind of just fell off the map, and I don't know. Not being for lack of knowledge on my end, I don't know what happened to them. I don't know if they went forward and showed this to anybody else in the media. Maybe it was just kind of a weird thing for them, and they were really looking for, anything more than a couple of minutes of fun, just showing up to the media here. Because I haven't heard anything from them. I haven't seen anything, them trying to get a reality show out of it or something.
Right. Yeah.
Even more to the veracity of it, because if they're not looking for anything,
right, and they can sue you or something for putting up on their website or something. So very good. Well, let me know if you do hear back from them, though, because I'm sure sometime in the future somebody might want to talk to them and see whether or not either that image of the great-grandmother appeared over the little girl's shoulder again, or whether they came up with an explanation from that cell phone camera. Either one would be an interesting update. And thank you, Matt Allen, for your time tonight, getting us started on Ghost to Ghost.
It's a privilege, Ian. Thank you.
Good. Look forward to seeing you again when I get out that way again.
I definitely will. And you know what? I'll do a little digging for you. If I can get a hold of the people that originated the photo, I'll contact you and get your people in touch with them so you can maybe have them on as guests as well.
Great. Thanks. Say hi to Paul for me. Okay.
I will. Thank you very much.
It's Ghost to Ghost AM tonight. That's Matt Allen from our Coast to Coast affiliate in Providence. Well, one person who wouldn't be terribly surprised by that story if it turns out to be real is Paul Kimball. Now, Paul is a producer and a writer and well, let me just ask, Paul, other than co-write, co-direct, and co-produce, you also co-host everything you do?
No, and hi Ian from Canada, from a tasty Canadian. The Ghost Cases series is the only one that I actually have brave enough to appear in front of the camera. I'm usually quite happy and sorry the viewers will see my look behind the camera.
But in Ghost Cases, which just debuted on Canadian television, you are the co-host for this.
Yes.
Okay.
A friend of mine, Holly Stevens, and I co-host the series. Yeah.
And so, what was your objective in doing a story on Canadian ghosts?
Well, it's not just Canadian ghosts. 8 of the episodes were filmed in Canada. 5 of them we actually filmed in the United Kingdom, in the Cheshire region around Manchester. So it's got a bit of an international flavor. And the idea was to do something a little different. I mean, there's an awful lot of ghost shows out there, obviously, popular subject. But our idea was to do less of ghost hunting, as it were, and more of just 2 people, and they could just be any 2 people. It could be you or any of your listeners. It just so happens that Holly and I. She has a science background, I have a history background, and we go out to these places where there are reported ghost stories or hauntings. We interview the witnesses, we talk to them, we get their stories, and we say, right, all right, let's see if we can have anything happen to us. So it's really very much sort of and I come from a documentary background. It's a documentary series, and it's also an experiential look at the kind of thing that any of us can do if we find haunted inns or haunted forts or whatever. You can go in and do these sorts of things yourself. We also happen to have the typical tools of the ghost investigating trade, the EMF meters, digital cameras, the audio recorders, and all of that. So there is the sort of scientific, or at least pseudo-scientific side. But at the end of the day, it comes down to whether we experience anything or not.
And that's sort of like a producer's worst nightmare, is to find out it's going to leave up the main action of any television show to variables outside of their control, so that either if nothing happens, then they've got nothing to work with. So frequently on these ghost hunter shows, you can see the kind of the emphasis that the ghost hunters put on amping up the suspense for every little twig snap and every raindrop that happens outside, and in effect it ends up, I think in a lot of cases, kind of ruining their credibility because nothing happens. They keep whipping the camera around going, what's that, but it isn't anything. So what was it like for you when you would go to these places where ghostly occurrences had happened before and nothing happened?
In most cases, and I will say there were actually 2 where nothing happened. I mean, one in which I'm convinced it was the residents of my old university, actually. convinced I was a student there 20 years ago, and I'm even more convinced now that it's just, sort of legends that have been passed down. And so that just means instead of filming 13 episodes, you wind up filming 14 because obviously it is television, and if you get an episode like that, it's not going to make it to air other than in this sort of season wrap-up where we revisit the best and worst evidence and some of the stories. And that one will make it in there where we say, look, sometimes you go to places that are supposed to be haunted, and you just find out there's a rational explanation for everything, and these things really are just legends. And not every house or place that's supposed to be haunted is haunted. The rest of the time, we actually, that's the nice thing. It's not totally reliant on us. Sometimes when people, I'm a firm believer in the television industry, as I'm sure you know, Ian, people will often tell you talking heads are death. You don't want to see talking heads. But I'm a firm believer that when people are telling you compelling and interesting first-hand witness stories, that's good television. That's good anything.
I would disagree with this. This much I would say. Talking heads are not death. They're the most fascinating things on television if the talking heads are not actually connected to a body. That I don't think it gets any more interesting than if somebody were doing that. Now, so what did you find? What was the best case as you, Paul Kimball, co-writer, co-producer, co-host of this new series on Canadian television? What was the best evidence that you were able to come up with on your own that substantiated a previous ghost occurrence in a location, and where did it happen?
Probably the best one was the Algonquin Hotel, which is in St. Andrews, New Brunswick, right on the border with Maine. And there's a story there, real short. A bride about 100 years ago who committed suicide after her fiance stood her up, didn't show up to the wedding. So she went up to room 473 and jumped out the window, fell 4 floors, and she's dead. And so we were there, we were investigating it. The hotel itself is very much like the hotel in The Shining. It's old and creepy and big like that. And nothing much had really happened. We'd had some EMF kind of fluctuations and stuff. But Holly and I do this segment in every episode we call Spook Hour, where we sit in whatever room is supposed to be haunted, and we try and make contact with the two of us. Nothing had happened there that night either, but every now and then I get a little feisty with the ghost, and Holly, I was so feisty with this one, I basically asked her out, that Holly felt she had to go back for whatever reason. We went and packed up gear. She went back in as if she did to sort of apologize to the spirit if there was one there, and just decompress. And we had a DVR camera, digital video camera, still running in the room. There was nobody else in the room. And Holly went over to look at the monitor, and the DVR camera in orbs, I think, until this point, almost any orb that I had ever can be explained through non-paranormal means. But where it's in the episode of Jared Tomorrow, out of the wall in front of Holly, literally the shape forms, and then this orb flies in I'll call it a light anomaly, flies in a straight line. Our camera picks it up right to the window where the bride would have jumped out. And that's weird enough. And then about a second or two later, and there's no one else in the room, Holly still doesn't know to this day why she turned around. She actually turned around and looked as if, and literally following the path of this orb took. And so there it is, on video. We showed it to some very experienced ghost investigators in the United Kingdom. They had 30 years between them, and they said it's the weirdest piece of video they'd ever seen. Truly anomalous. They couldn't explain it. And that's the kind of thing that makes me go,
That's tomorrow night, then, is when that particular episode of Ghost Cases airs?
Yeah.
Tomorrow night. Okay, so here's what I want to ask Paul Kimball. I want to put you on hold. I want you to hear some of the other stories that we have coming up. So I'm going to put you on hold right now, and then we'll come back to you coming up later this hour, because I want to hear then about another one of your investigations as part of your series, Ghost Cases, which just debuted on Canadian television. Where we'll be able to see that particular video would be very cool if we could get a link to that for our webpage, maybe coming up for tomorrow night or next week when George Norrie is on. And then also, too, I'd love to get a couple of your stories coming up next. Several people who have been on hold already for Ghost to Ghost gets underway on Ghost to Ghost AM. This is Ian Punnett. It's Ghost to Ghost AM, and we'll be taking ghost stories all night long on the phones. We'll get to your first few contributions coming up in just a second. We'll also get an update again from Paul Kimball from Canadian television. Ghost Cases is his new show that's just debuting, and it's going to give us another real-life occurrence of what happened to him. If you go to the website at coasttocoastam.com, you'll see that my blog is up. I've got a couple of blogs tonight I've already posted. One was a little Halloween thing with some photos and links. And then I put up that ghost photo from what I was talking about earlier this hour with Matt Allen of WPRO, which is our coast-to-coast affiliate in Providence. And it's a couple of thousand of you have already clicked on to this ghostly photo of a little girl with what appears to be her great-grandmother appearing over her shoulder. And it is the kind of creepy ghost photo that no one's been able to quite explain. It looks simple enough, but there's no... It was taken on a cell phone camera. It just doesn't make any sense. And people that Matt had talked to who were experienced with photoshopping say it's really hard to do what's on the image because of the girl's wispy hair in front of the face of the great-grandmother. But while you're there, too, you might want to take a look. I put up a couple other links on the blog. For example, the scariest chew toy that they're selling these days. I bought one for my dog at my favorite pet food shop. They're selling dried esophagus. It's perfect for a vampire dog like mine. But it's dried esophagus. It's just disgusting, but the dogs love it. It's full of glucosamine or something that's supposed to be really good for them. But you can see my dog having at it there. And then also, you don't want to look at this one photo. I put it up there. It's the scariest thing that can happen to a homeowner. A friend of mine who just had about 3 inches of raw sewage back up in his basement. It's just, you don't even want to click onto it. Don't click onto it. Or for that matter, the scariest Christmas gift in the Vermont Country Store catalog. You don't want to see that one either. I can't believe that they put it in the catalog, but anyway. And then finally, too, I put up a link for something. This one, do click onto. There's a great website called myparentswereawesome.com. And it's photos of people uploading photos of their parents back when their parents were really cool looking. So, gotta take a look at it because, especially on a night like Halloween, I saw people coming to the door dressed in outfits that I used to wear seriously. You know, I mean, that's kind of the weird thing about Halloween. People come to the door tonight dressed like they're in the 80s or 70s. Yeah, but it's not a costume. That's my laundry. It's not, but, you know, kids, what can you do? So go take a look if you want to. There's some fun things and some not-so-fun things to look at coasttocoastam.com. And your calls coming up next. We'll go Ghost to Ghost with Ian Punnett. Gabrielle is in New Orleans, first-time caller line on Ghost to Ghost AM. Hi, Gabrielle.
Hey, Ian. I am so pleased to be your first caller on the first caller line. You there?
Yes, is this your first call ever to Coast?
It is, but I've tried to call before. I wanted to say I've got a vampire dog, too. She sleeps on the earth of her homeland.
Which is where?
New Orleans.
Okay, New Orleans. Okay.
Anyway, this is an experience I had while I was driving along Highway 29 in North Carolina. It's a road known as the Dragon's Tail. It's a very popular road for recreational bikers because there are about 300 curves within 9 miles. I was coming into North Carolina from the north, and it was fairly late, about 10 p.m. And this is not a populated area. Most of this area is national forest or parkland, and there aren't any houses around this particular part of the Dragon's Tail. So I was trying to get through this very dangerous piece of highway, and I was slowly coming around one of the curves, and I see a guy running along the highway down the mountain in the opposite direction of where I was coming. And he wasn't exactly running. He was kind of bounding, and it looked like there was no weight hitting the pavement. He was barefoot, and he didn't have a jacket on. Now, that was strange because it was the kind of the end of October, and the mountains were getting very, very cold right about then. So I drove past, and he looked at me in a very distracted way. And when he turned his head, he turned it completely to look at me, but it didn't slow down his pace at all. I almost slowed down to ask him if he needed help, but he was just too creepy that I didn't. Not very far ahead, about several more curves up the road, I came upon a gathering of police cars with flashing blue lights, and it looked like there had been an accident. I had to slow down quite a bit, and as I passed, I saw that a biker had a terrible accident and had fallen on the road. And the guy I saw just a little ways up the road looked very much like the person that was lying on the ground. So I may have been seeing a ghost.
I think that sort of seems like that explanation which we hear from certain ghost experts who say ghosts are the spirits, the confused spirits of people who can't leave this earth, and that if he had had an accident and he was still processing the fact that he was dead, he would have just kept walking on up the road as though he still had a destination to meet, not knowing for sure that he had been killed. Yeah.
Right, and he was running. He didn't have his bike anymore.
Right.
He had to run, and he was barefoot. He didn't have a jacket on, so the coldness wasn't bothering him. It was just too weird.
Well, that's really interesting. And a great way to get us started. Thank you, Gabrielle. Worth getting you through for the first time on Coast to Coast. It's Zell in Washington, Maine. Zell. Welcome to Coast to Coast.
Happy Halloween.
And to you.
So, in the mid-'70s to the late 70s, I was living next door to an old wooden inn on the coast of Maine in Owl's Head with my in-laws home. And it was wintertime, and in the wintertime, they closed up 2/3 of the inn and just lived in the heated third of the inn. And my mother-in-law was upstairs with my 4-year-old nephew, Jamie. And Jamie used to play in the spare bedroom with some toys. And Jamie came out of the bedroom crying hysterically, saying, Granny, that man hit me. And she went in and there was nobody there, and he was just hysterical. So she went downstairs and waited for people to come home before she should go back upstairs. The next day, his uncle and I were over doing laundry, and no one else was home. And we used to joke quite frequently about Fred the ghost that lived in the inn. And there's been other odd little occurrences over the years of noises on the stairs and doors opening, the bells on the back of the door ringing. And we'd always say, oh, it's just Fred. So my husband then hollered up the stairs as we were going in through, Fred, you better not be hitting Jamie anymore.
Right.
And one of the doors upstairs in the bedroom slammed so hard and so loud that we just decided we were going to leave.
How about that?
No wind, all the doors were closed, wintertime, no windows open, no drafts, no people, just the door going.
Just a ghost having a tantrum, didn't like to be told what it could do.
No, not at all.
Very interesting. Thank you, Sal. Love that story. And not uncommon, too. You know, it's funny how the door thing becomes a total cliche. And people, doors close, whatever. But if you're in a house where there's no draft and something like that happens, it's fresh. That happened to me once, too, in a house where no windows, no anything, not on even floors, door shuts, gets your attention. John is floating somewhere in the San Francisco Bay listening to Ghost to Ghost. Go ahead, John.
Happy Champagne, Minister Funny.
Oh, very interesting. Yes, and to you, I say happy Halloween back. But so, is this something that happened to you? When you say floating in San Francisco Bay, you mean you're in some sort of boat, not floating over the bay yourself right now?
Right, I'm not in shoes or anything.
Okay, go ahead.
My occurrence actually happened at my old house. I was in my old bedroom at my parents' house sleeping, sort of face down in the bed, and I felt a presence behind me very early in the morning. I sort of turned over my right shoulder to look, and I saw a sort of glowing old man just standing by the doorway. And I was sort of surprised, but, you know, I'd seen dozens of ghosts and things sort of breaking through reality in various ways, so but might have paralyzed someone with terror sort of didn't really shock me very much. But then I sort of found myself, after sort of looking him in the eyes, lying back down again on my face, right in the same bed, only the presence felt closer. And this sort of discontinuity sort of jarred me a little bit, so I looked again, and the same old man was there, a bald old man was looking at me, only this time he was a couple steps closer. And as soon as I acknowledged that boom, I was back face down in my bed again. Only this time he felt a little bit closer. And I turned and looked, and he was there, only this time a couple steps closer. And as soon as I acknowledged that, the same thing happened again. It was like I was waking up again and again in the same dream. Until finally, when I looked and turned, and it was as though I could only feel him and couldn't even feel the bed below me. But he was standing right next to me, and then he just sort of faded away. My room sort of kind of reappeared, and that time I was really awake and just went about my day.
Well, there's a word for that, and I learned it tonight because there's a webpage at coasttocoastfm.com about a story. The scientists are working on, all the time trying to understand fascination with ghosts and as it pertains to sleep paralysis. And the experience of which you speak ties directly into the research that they were doing in the story that we've linked up. Because they say, I think they refer to that period as hypnopompic, the time that you're coming out of REM sleep, and that you can be caught in a phase of sleep paralysis, that you feel awake, but your body is still asleep. Your mind is still asleep, essentially, but you feel awake, and that you're coming in and out of that lucidity so seamlessly that you don't realize what you're seeing is actually being generated by your own brain as opposed to an external experience. That having been said, I just want you to, that's what they said in this article. Tell me why would make sense to you or not make sense to you based on the experience you have.
It both makes sense and also doesn't make sense. To start off, it makes sense to me because I've had other experiences where I've been caught in a sleep paralysis sort of state, and have had other mystical experiences that way. Another reality, even been, sort of forced out of my body or forced into another realm entirely.
Right.
It doesn't make sense because, in this particular instance, because later, while flicking through the television stations, I found a little program called Famous Ghosts of California by the History Channel, and the ghost that I saw was one of the 5 most famous ghosts of California.
Okay, fair enough. That's very interesting. And your dream predated or pre-experience of what you saw on television.
Correct.
Very good. John, thank you. That was great and very interesting. And this is just how Ghost to Ghost will go all night long. I hope that Paul Kimball has been monitoring this. Back in the earlier in the hour, we talked to Paul, who's the co-host, co-writer, and co-producer of this series that's running on Canadian television called Ghost Cases. Paul, you've been comparing some of these stories with some of the things that you experienced. What do you hear so far?
Well, the one about the door is interesting because, as you say, it's a bit of a cliche in the horror film kind of thing that the door and the bell would sort of close. That actually happened to me in the episode that we aired, the network story aired. I don't own the network yet.
Yeah.
Yes. That they aired last week, which is actually up the CW front page on Coast to Coast. Follow the link, it goes to our blog.
Cool.
And then we have that episode up on the blog so you can watch it. And what happened is, it was very odd. Holly was upstairs. It was a haunted farmhouse. Holly was upstairs with a psychic, and they were trying to contact spirits. And, everything's game for us. We'll use anything from EMF meters to psychics, anything to try and see what's going on. I was downstairs in the basement, which is supposedly haunted all by myself. And there's this back and forth, and I could hear them through the walls, and they were saying, there's a dead baby in the basement. There's a dead baby in the basement. Well, Paul's down there. Go down and say hello and show where the baby's buried. And In fact, people have told me it's quite funny because I'm a coward and I'm in the basement going, I don't want you to show me the baby. Don't come down. And just as that happened, and I can tell you, I was there. There's no wind. There was nothing. The door. I've been there half an hour. Nothing had happened to the door. The door behind me, as I'm sitting on the stairs of the basement, goes and opens. And just as they were up there saying, "Go down and show Paul where the baby is," and I have to tell you, there's probably about 20 things in my life over the 42 years I've been lucky enough to live that have really, really freaked me out or scared me, and that was one.
How about that?
Yeah,
that would qualify.
Yeah, it's just, and I'm sure, I'm a skeptic. I really am. I'm an agnostic on all this, and the part of me that's a skeptical, logical person says, well, there must be some logical explanation to that. I went out. I thought the crew was playing practical joke on me, frankly.
Right.
And the thing about the farmhouse door was it wedged in. It closed the basement door. It was hard to open. And so even if it had been breeze, it would have to be a pretty stiff one. And there was nothing. I had heard the breezes earlier that evening. It was still as the grave, as they say outside. And that one really freaked me out, especially given the timing of what was going on upstairs at the same time as downstairs that this happened. So that story that I heard about, anytime I hear about spores, that resonates with me now.
Again, you can link up to that episode then at coast2coastam.com to Ghost Cases. This was the episode for the new Canadian television series that just aired last week. Paul Kimball is the co-host of the show and the co-investigator of these ghost stories. Is there a difference between, say, Canadian ghosts and ghosts from the United States? Are American ghosts the same as Canadian ghosts? Canadian ghosts, are they more sarcastic than American ghosts? Is there anything you see, or any difference in the character of the stories at all?
I think more Canadian ghosts probably speak French. But other than that, no. I mean, ghost stories. People ask me, they say, because I've done a number of documentaries about UFOs and stuff, and people say, well, what are ghost stories? What are ghost investigating like compared to UFO stories? And I go, it's all about the search for us trying to find something with UFOs. Like, is there life out there, perhaps? But ghosts are the most existential of the whole lot because it says to us, is there life for us personally beyond what we have right here? And the stories that you hear across the world, when you're in the United Kingdom or the United States or Canada, there's a stunning similarity between them. And I don't think there's any real difference. Obviously, if you're in a place in Alabama and you're in Ontario or you're in Scotland, there's regional differences, but the crux of the stories remain the same. And there's certain characteristics that you can break down and say, okay, this is what's happening here. And as you said in, I think, an earlier segment, I heard you say with one of your callers that it often seems behind some traumatic event. So that seems to be a common theme.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, we'll be following that, and I hope that when we can see that episode about the orb, because we won't be getting ghost cases down here in the United States, at least for a while. Will you put up a link on that page too and let us know so that we can let people see that? Because that would be really cool.
I will indeed. After it airs tomorrow and the network doesn't get mad at me for putting it up, I will make sure that that's up there and everybody can see it at our blog.
Oh, very good. And then I'll send a note to the webmasters and make sure that they put that up so that people can see it on our webpage. Thank you so much. Paul, enjoyed talking. Thanks for getting us started. And everybody else, hang on. The phones are filling up for Ghost to Ghost. Your ghost stories for the rest of this night, all across North America and beyond. What life is out there? What life exists in here, somewhere deeply buried in a soul that doesn't want to let go of this earth? On Ghost to Ghost. This is Ian. Well, we're going to grab Tim. We just had him on before the top of the hour, and then the music was running, and I think Tim was just getting up to the climactic kind of revelation of the story of Ghost to Ghost AM tonight. So Tim in San Diego, so if I were to give a headline to the story, the headline is, your mother saw your ghost, saw you as a ghost when you died on the operating table.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so what happened was, right when I get back from all of it, like a week later, I get back and she's taking me to my nutritionist appointment, and I see this car crash, and then she she looks over and says, "What are you talking about?" Because I told her, "Wow, did you see that crash?" And then she's like, "What are you talking about?" And then like 5 seconds later, like a delay, and then it happened. And we just avoided getting in that crash. So then we went to the doctor's appointment, and she's telling them the nutritionist about what happened. So she's trying to make us draw pictures, and I think these people are crazy. And so then we're on my way home from my appointment, and it's late, later in the evening, and it's storming and stuff. My mom pulls over on the freeway, and she says, "I'm really scared. I'm freaked out about what things that's happened lately." And she said, "When you were in the hospital, I came home from school, and I went to the restroom upstairs because Tim was in the other bathroom, and then she says that she was reading a letter from my brother, and I told her, Mom, I don't feel very good." And so she looked at me and said I looked really pale and stuff. And she says, "Well, honey, close the door and give me my space. I'll come back and I'll talk to you in a little bit." Just when she was done, she went out there and looked for me and thought, "Oh my God, he's in the hospital." So then she ran downstairs, and her boyfriend at the time was still in the bathroom. And so when he came out and she got a hold, she said, "Something terrible happened. Henry, we got to go to we got to find out what's going on." So she calls my uncle.
Okay. I gotta get to the story. Ed, he's got to come somewhere here too, because you got so many people waiting. Okay.
Oh yeah, she calls my aunt. My aunt says, "Yeah, Timmy's in the recovery room right now." And I woke up and had these pimples around my chest, and they said that I had died and that they would revive me.
Wow. Well, glad you got revived. Thank you for getting to the end of the story, and also thank you for hanging on as long as you did. A lot of people who are hanging on want to tell their story and get a chance to do it next. Ghost to Ghost, let's keep them as short as we can and focused to the main meat of the story next on Ghost to Ghost AM. This is Ian Punnett. Let's go to Lori, who's been waiting in British Columbia on the international line on Ghost to Ghost. Lori?
Hi, Ian. I will keep this one short, okay? About 6 years ago, I lived and worked out in like a little bed and breakfast. There's like a small restaurant next door, and I was there as a cook. And 2 years before I even started working there, the previous owner had died of a heart attack right outside of the kitchen. Anyway, I saw this guy everywhere. And one day, I was in the kitchen prepping up for dinner, and there's not a soul in the restaurant or the store. It was really, really quiet. And I was working on like the island in the middle of the kitchen, doing prep work. And I hear somebody coming in from the restaurant into the kitchen right in front of me, kind of thing, like going through the push door to get into the kitchen, and lowering a tray of dishes and stuff. And I look up and there's no one there. And the next thing I know, there's cutlery getting thrown at my head.
Cutlery flying through the air.
Yeah. And 2 seconds later, it was like somebody had walked around the island to right beside me and knocked everything off of the shelf.
Okay, that's freaky.
I know, it's really freaky.
And the origin of the flying cutlery, there is no other explanation. Nobody had...
There was not a soul around.
There was not a box of knives that were being balanced on a neighborhood seesaw or anything like that.
No. But it was like a spoon and a fork came flying right across at my head.
Wow.
I know. And I ran out of the kitchen into the store and was like freaked right out.
I bet. So has anybody else ever reported a similar incident?
Yes. Yep. A lot of people have seen this man that had passed away.
Have they also been sport like you, where they had
No. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. I think it was, for us, that was well worth you hanging on. I hope it was worth it for you too.
It was.
Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. That's Lori on the international line. Let's go to wildcard line. Luke is in Ducks territory. Are you a Ducks guy, Luke?
I am.
That was
It was a very good game today.
It was an awesome game.
Got a lot of excited people in the town tonight.
I was totally impressed. That was, and I know that they're suffering down at USC, but that was some seriously cool football I was watching today. So way to go, Sox.
Yeah, well, hey, dig this. This is my ghost story. Okay, about 15 years ago, I was living in this basement in this house up here in Portland. And there's no windows or anything, and I had a strand of Christmas lights that ran from one corner of the ceiling to the other corner of the ceiling. And in the center, I had attached them with a piece of duct tape. So there was kind of a I don't know what you call it, but they were attached in the center of the ceiling, all right? So there was like two sort of bows. Anyway, I got into this sort of meditation type of deal where I would sit in the center of my room, and I would sit in the middle of a circle of candles that I would light around myself, and I would put a candle right in front of me, and I would stare directly into it and just sort of zone out on it. And one night, sitting down there, in the center of the candle, and for some reason I started thinking about ghosts, and I just started really fixating on it, on just like asking in my conscience, saying, if there's anybody here, show yourself. I just kept saying that over and over in my mind. And after maybe, 15 seconds of doing that center strand of Christmas lights came unattached, and my Christmas light started swinging back and forth in above. Like I heard them drop, and then they just started swinging. And that was the end of my ghost. Like that was the end of me thinking, ooh, I wonder if there's any way that we can conjure up some spirits.
Right.
There's absolutely no way that, because a lot of people said, well, the tape just come undone, but not at that exact moment where I was...
Not that exact second. So here's my question. Do you think that was the ghost of Christmas past? The ghost of Christmas present or future?
I really don't know. I didn't stick around.
Didn't bother sitting down to ask a lot of questions. I don't know.
I blew the candles out, turned my lights on, and spent the night upstairs.
That's very interesting. Thank you. Appreciate that. Great story. Let's get to Alan in Fresno, California on Ghost to Ghost. Alan? Really? Oh, really? Okay. Is that it? No second act, Alan? Just
I am as lovely as majestically as Lord as I will tell you.
You are, wait. You are Gasmodius? Asmodeus. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I am in possession of living things. I am in demons. This body is going with I need your to come there and fall to me.
You gotta do something about that. You gotta Alright, very good. Thank you. Thanks for calling. And happy motoring. Let's go to Jim in Redlands, California on Coast to Coast AM. Jim?
Thank you, Ian, for being so gracious to take my call. And if I could just say thank you to my stepfather, Bob, who turned me onto this show a couple of years ago.
Bobby Rock.
He does. When I was a young boy, maybe 12 or 13, my immediate family moved to our family property in Northern California, and we built the fort. and I was building add-ons to the fort, and there was a time where I was building up into the trees, and I'm looking out into the forest that was abutted to the house, and saw an older gentleman, and I thought it was my grandfather at the time, as he's walking near me, and he was older, and he had a well-worn buckskin pants, and he was, as he came closer, I identified him as Native American, and it was so strange to me. I was like, what's this guy doing here? He walked, and later on, I just thought nothing of it. It was just weird that he was walking through our eucalyptus forest, and told my dad about it, and he said, no, it's probably nothing, but, just to be sure, let's just check the property. And we went out and checked the property, and nothing was found. And several years later, they used the forest as a bike trail to ride my bike through, and I saw the same character with a newer shirt, red, and buckskin pants, and yet he was much younger, and he looked at me and he smiled, and I just was like, oh, the same guy. It's just,
Now your phone's going all Asmodeus on me. Suddenly Jim went all Asmodeus. Just disappeared in the haze of Asmodeum. I'm sorry about that. And it was interesting too about the Indian and the guy, and I'm assuming he wasn't doing the same drugs that Jim Morrison was doing, so I'm sure there's an end to that story, which we'll just have to imagine. Meanwhile, Julie is in Salt Lake City on Ghost to Ghost, west of the Rockies. Julie?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Happy Halloween.
Thank you. I just want to know, is it a long-distance call for a demon to call?
Tell me where Salt Lake City is in relationship to hell.
We're a little bit to the right and kind of to the north.
You may be local then. I don't know.
My story is actually about my sister. My sister is a police officer, and she's a really tough girl. And in my whole life, I've probably seen her cry about 10 times. So she and some friends heard about this haunted house that supposedly where this guy had committed suicide and the house was haunted. So she goes there, and several weeks later, I was at lunch with her, and she said to me, I have to ask you a question. I'm like, what? And she says, this thing has followed me home. I'm like, no. And she said, really? And I mean, she's getting teary-eyed over this whole thing. And I said, well, what do you mean it followed you home? And she said, I've seen it come out of my closet twice. And I said, were you sleeping? And she said, no, I was sitting up listening to the stereo, and it came through the closet. And she said, it's a man, and he's got on a hat, and it looks like maybe 100-year-old period dress and all this kind of stuff. And she was hysterical. She said, what do I do? And I said, well, you pray and you have God make it bleed. And she did, and it went away. So this last Memorial Day, we were going to clean off the fallen officers' graves. We put flowers and stuff on their graves. And we were at a briefing breakfast prior to that, and they handed out little bios on the different officers who died in the line of duty. And they started talking about this one man who supposedly haunts this house. And she looks at it, and it was him. And she said, she looked at me, and I mean, she went white, and she's like, Julie, it's him. And that was the guy. And so instead of being scary and following her, he probably followed her because she was a police officer.
Oh, that's so interesting.
That is interesting, huh?
Yeah. And then any other recurrences?
No, not after that at all.
How about that? Now, talk about demons, though. Like, there's some interesting. Have you seen the movie Paranormal Activity?
I did.
Okay, and you know how they discuss the difference between ghosts and demons? Right, so is there, and I was trying to get a feel for this from based on some previous callers too, is with a ghost like that, suddenly did her feeling about the experience change? Did she feel like it was less malevolent once she knew the history to it? Or did she feel like it was still, there was something that was coming after her?
At the time, she felt like it was coming after her. And she said to me, on Memorial Day, she said, maybe it wasn't. Maybe he was just coming because I was a police officer and he thought I would understand who he was or something.
Right.
She did feel differently about it this May than she did before.
Yeah, I don't know. And thank you, I appreciate that. I know I was throwing you kind of a curve by asking that, but I do think that's an intriguing question. Is when we feel like something is malevolent, does it change the way we perceive the experience from something ghostly to something demonic? And I never really quite understand the whole demonic thing in many respects, so I know this gets into a big cosmology issue and different theologies come into conflict about demons and such, but that's our ghost stories, generally speaking, don't end in somebody being hurt or killed. They just end up in somebody being startled or having sort of a paradigm shift. Demonic stories seem to take on a different twist, unless, of course, it's like the previous caller, Alan, where you have a demon named Alan. Let's go to Kentucky. Who's Jesse? Who's on the wild card line in Kentucky? Didn't pop up on the screen. But what's that? Patrick.
Hello.
Nick is in Kentucky. Hey, Nick.
Yeah, it's Nick.
Go ahead. We got about a minute for you. Would that be enough?
Yeah, that's enough. Okay, so I had just moved into my new apartment. Okay, and I just settled down. It started moving my stuff in. Laid down there the first night, I could hear this whispering. Some little kid whispering to me I've been diddled by the guy that knows coast to coast. I knew he was saying that.
Oh, come on. How hard is this, really? I mean, how drunk do you have to be for this to seem funny? I hope that you bleeped him. Great. Come on, Kentucky, you can do better than Nick. Come on. I'm counting on you, Kentucky. Give me somebody better than Nick to represent your state. Love Kentucky. Let's get to California, back up to Canada, Las Vegas. We're going coast to coast on Coast to Coast AM. That sounds good to hear that song. Johnny Cash and Ghost Riders in the Sky. This was, I think they used it as a bumper last night too on Coast to Coast. Just love that song. It reminded me that Rosanne Cash, his daughter, has a new album out called The List. And it's a collection of songs that Johnny Cash once gave Rosanne Cash and said, these are the 100 essential songs that you must learn to appreciate, I believe is kind of the understanding. In fact, that she had come from a rock and roll background. Rosanne Cash grew up not so much in the South or in Nashville, but rather around Southern California. And she was the head of the local Beatles fan club and stuff. And so when she finally joined her father on tour after he had kind of cleaned up from years of drug abuse and she and he had reconciled enough to be able to perform together and have sort of this new relationship, he gave her the list of the songs for her to go deeper into the country roots of the family business, as it were. And that's what the new album is about. It's her favorite songs from the list. I have the album. It's tremendous. And if you're a Johnny Cash fan, I think you would enjoy hearing Rosanne Cash do those songs as well. So it's a selection, I think, of 12 of the 100 songs on the list. I hope it means there's another list album coming someday. And speaking of speaking of going back into the past, remember that tonight is the night we fall back. We spring forward, fall back for the daylight savings time, and we will be falling back here on Coast to Coast. Many of you listening in parts of the country that do not participate in daylight savings time, Hawaii, Arizona, parts of Indiana, we will be falling back so far on the air that I will sound like Art Bell doing 1 hour of Ghost to Ghost. That's how freaky the interruption of the space-time continuum can be. So, it could happen tonight that you'll be listening to Coast to Coast in certain areas of Hawaii, Arizona, and Indiana, and suddenly, as though you've entered in some sort of wormhole, we will hear Art Bell for an hour, and then we will come back to the show. I'm just telling you. Be prepared. It's Halloween night, and anything can happen. And we also like to be kind of upfront with all the things that can happen on this show, because we know that some people take the show very seriously. For example, that news story about the guy in Iowa that walked up to somebody else in a store and punched him. You know, you heard the story. This happened right after we did a whole show about zombies on Coast to Coast. And then this news story came up about one guy walking up to another guy in a shop, accuses him of being a zombie, and punches him in the face. And police are looking for that guy who punched the other guy. Just goes to show you the times we're living in, that somehow it's not even politically correct anymore to punch a zombie, you know? What have things come to this now, that you see a zombie and you can't even punch him anymore? No, apparently not. Not even allowed to call him zombies anymore. It's the ambulatory deceased. So be careful, keep listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Ghost to Ghost on Coast to Coast AM. This is Ian Potter. Let's get to Jesse in Eureka, California on Ghost to Ghost. Jesse?
Hi.
Thanks for waiting as long as you did.
Yeah. My aunt Angel and I have a hide and seek ghost story. We were at her house, and it was the middle of the day. We were playing hide and seek, and I was hiding in the bathroom counting while she was hiding somewhere. And when I was done counting, I opened the door, looked down the hall, and I saw her hair fling around the corner. And her hair is brown, long, and curly. So I ran over there to see if I can catch her. And I look around the corner, and I see her hair fling around the other corner that goes to the kitchen. So I run over there, but she isn't there. And the curtains were moving that lead to the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran all over the house trying to look for her, but she wasn't there. And here's her side of the story.
So me, his aunt, was outside on the deck waiting for him to find me. And while I was waiting, all of a sudden I see and hear this thunk on the glass sliding door of the deck, and I see the curtains moving all over the place. And I was thinking, oh man, he found me, you know. So I was standing there waiting for him to come and get me, but he never came. So I opened the door and I said, I thought you found me. You totally looked through the curtains. And he said, no, I thought you were in the house. I didn't even see you. And I thought you were in the house, but I wasn't. And we both saw the same ghost at the same time.
Very interesting. And Jesse, that was the best impersonation of your aunt I've ever heard. Oh, there's two of you. Well, I see. Interesting, thank you. I'm getting a kind of a weird slapback echo, so I'm going to put you on hold, but that was cool. And especially, I wasn't expecting Jesse to break into or hand the phone over to his aunt, and then suddenly it's like I survived on A&E or something. Cool. Don's in St. Louis. It's Ghost to Ghost.
Hey, yeah, it's a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for hanging out.
Like you said a few minutes ago, anything can happen tonight, and it just did. I have a ghost story, but actually in a kind of a paradoxical manner. It starts with two questions. I'd like to shoot at the audience if anybody has any wisdom to either one of these
it might help me actually solve the mystery behind it. My questions are brief, and what they are is this. I'd like to know if anybody knows if a person suffers from a fever, can that actually affect their ability to have the supernatural, any kind of supernatural phenomenon? And my second question is, and of course I don't think anybody would know because after it happens, you know, how you gonna know? But people that have done research on this, maybe they would know. But if the person commits suicide as opposed to just dying, I'd like to know if anybody would really understand what kind of state that would leave them in terms of being on the other side. The Bible never speaks of suicide as a sin. It doesn't recommend that you do it. It doesn't recommend that you don't. So it's kind of a thing that I've always been curious of. And it kind of leads to my ghost story, which I'm going to right now, briefly. My girlfriend and I were sleeping right next to each other in her front room. I was sick, and I was running a low-grade fever. I was sleeping on the couch. She wanted and insisted to sleep on the floor next to me. I felt a little guilty about that, but she didn't care. She wanted to. So I let her, and we went to sleep. About 2 hours later, I heard the kitchen back door, screen door, open up with an eerie squeal, and I woke up and heard it. And right away I reached down and I start, touching her shoulder. Wake up, wake up, wake up, and finally she woke up, and I said, there's somebody in your house, and they're coming to this room, and we heard heavy footsteps, and I say we, because I'm the one with the fever, she was the one nursing me. What happened was the footsteps got stronger as they came closer to the front room. Finally, a tall, what I would consider a male, hooded man in a dark trench coat stopped and looked at both of us. Neither one of us said anything back. Apparently, after about 5 minutes, it was satisfied with whatever its reason was, turned around, and did a reverse of the entire thing. Now, we were both freaking, and of course, we went back to sleep, and the next day we checked with several of her friends to see if anybody stopped by in the middle of the night. She did have a couple male friends that were rather tall, so we asked them, and if they were like, no, usually I call when they come over. So we never tracked it down. Finally, she never wanted to admit this to me, but she finally admitted to me that several years before I met her and some of her girlfriends practiced Wicca in the house, and she claimed that it was some kind of a shaman, I meant to pronounce that correctly, that was basically just checking up on her and seeing if she was okay, because I was a stranger, she said, and he just wanted to make sure that I wasn't hurting her. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll have to buy that because I don't have any other choice. And that's it, But the weird thing about it was, after this all happened, it left an eerie vibe. The person, or the ghost, I would call him, was not invisible like the typical ghost where you see through. He was a solid figure. But nonetheless, he didn't leave any negative impressions except that...
What do you mean a solid figure?
Well, you could not see through him like a typical ghost. It was a solid figure in a trench coat with a tall and a hat.
The shaman was?
Well, she claimed he was, yes.
Okay.
So that's what I mean by solid,
So you could touch him?
Well, I wouldn't want to. I was like 20 feet away on the couch.
Right.
But I'm assuming you could, and we heard the footsteps very clearly on the hardwood floor.
Plus, of course, there's that rule about, do not squeeze the shaman. You're not...
Oh, get away.
Yeah, sure. I brought that one back from the dead.
That was good.
But let me ask you though, and how does this? I mean, what are you looking for out of that suicide question? What is it that? I mean, I don't know if anybody will address it, but what is it that you're looking to find?
Well, ever since that happened, my girlfriend, she started acting sort of different. Not towards me, but just in personality. Her idiosyncrasy changed a bit. And it was almost like she hinted towards wanting to join him. And so I took it as, a suicide death wish. And I even blankly asked her one time, and she said, well, sort of, because he wants to protect me, and I feel like he's trying so hard I need to be with him, but I'm afraid to go to the other side because I don't know what lurks there. And I was like, okay, let's hope this concludes the end of the entire
relationship.
Everything.
Interesting, Doc. Appreciate that. Thanks for sharing. Great story. Let me get to Jeff, Victoria, British Columbia, on the international line on Ghost to Ghost. Jeff?
Hi, how you doing?
Terrific. Thanks. Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween. Just to quickly answer the last caller's question about fever and spirits. There was an episode of MASH where Klinger had a severe fever and he was interacting with a disembodied entity.
That settles that.
And to get to my noise and nonsense, when I was a kid, I lived in this housing unit, and we used to get posters ripped off the walls. The toilet would flush in the middle of the night. Taps would turn on. At one point, my mom's favorite mixing bowl went missing for 2 weeks.
It's the realm of poltergeist, isn't it? The kind of practical joke-playing spirits.
Yeah, I believe that's what it was that was going on, yeah.
Any history for why that would be happening to you?
Other than there was a history of sensitivity in my family.
Interesting. And nothing since then?
Well, I've had all sorts of things since then.
Following you around?
Pardon?
Following you around, as it were?
Not really following me around, just incidents that occur that could be paranormal. Like right now I work in a pub, I do cleaning at night, and it's supposedly got a ghost in it somewhere.
Have you experienced that ghost yet?
No, I have not.
That opens the door for next year then. And sharing that story next year, Jeff, if you get one, make sure you call us back on Ghost to Ghost. Patrick is in Tugboat on the wild card line on Coast to Coast. Patrick?
Hey, how's it going, Ian? I was 3 miles off Cape May. I was in Freeport, Texas at 19 years old, and just started working on this crew boat, and the guys had told me, at first I thought they were pulling my leg, but he told me there that an engineer had died on board that boat, and I was only 19, so, but I was standing watching a few months later, and it was one of them hot Texas nights in Freeport, man, and then I'm down there in the galley, and then I hear that door open up, man, and it's footsteps striding across the deck, and oh man, I run on up, because I'm gonna watch it, I'm supposed to do that. So I run up and I run out that same door that was closed, and there was nothing out there. I mean, nothing, nobody. There was no way anybody could play a joke on the boat because there's only one way in and one way out. But oh man, I distinctly remember coming back in that into the area where I heard the boost, and just it was like the AC was just crazy hot. I mean, I didn't know a lot about ghosts back then, but man, I'll never forget what that was like.
I think there's something unique about these, whether it's a ghost ship or ghosts on a ship. There's something about that isolation of being out in the middle of the ocean, right? I mean, that is...
I hear you now.
you are not able to like run down the sidewalk to a neighbor's house. There's not a whole lot you can do. That it's just got to amplify the whatever experience you're having.
I'll never forget that. That was the scariest thing I ever had.
I appreciate that, Patrick. And be careful out there. And let's get to Andrew in Las Vegas on Ghost to Ghost. Andrew?
Hello there. It's a pleasure being on your show. I won't take too much time. My story goes back to New Mexico. I'm originally from New Mexico, born and raised, and my dad is actually the one that told me this story. He said that back in the day when he was younger, he used to like to go dancing and hang out with his friends. Well, they used to go dancing to this certain place in New Mexico, the dance hall. And they were all dancing, the place was crowded, the band was playing, and they noticed this really tall man, an individual, that was dancing with like several women. All the women were very attracted to him for some reason. And they saw him from the top up. He was a very tall man, like I said, a bearded gentleman, had like a trench coat on, type deal. And one of the women, as they were dancing, as the night progressed, looked down, and as they were hearing all this tapping noise, as he was dancing, they were like, and they were wondering what's going on, they thought maybe he had tap shoes. Well, one of the women that he was dancing with actually looked down, and at this time noticed that he had full feet. And at the same time she saw his full feet, she turned around and said, "Oh my God," or whatever she said. And everybody turned and looked, and a tail came out from the bottom of his jacket. And at that time, he turned, and it was just this big bang and a puff of smoke. And he left that whole place smelling like sulfur. The place had to shut down. My dad spent for like a month trying to get that sulfur thing out. But the weird part is...
Oh, that's not weird enough? Here's the weird part? Okay, go ahead.
They've never been able to clean that floor.
Very interesting, and I take it on your dad's word because I know your dad would never tell you something that isn't true. There's a history a bit to that story, which we'll get back to then coming up in our final hour of Ghost to Ghost, Coast to Coast AM. This is our last hour of Ghost to Ghost. And I just wanted to start by picking up where we left off with Andrew's story. He was sharing a story from New Mexico. Now, I don't know what Andrew's parentage is. He talked about his father, and I don't know whether there is any Mexican-American family tradition for Andrew. But the story he told reminded me of a story that I had heard from somebody else who identified it as a Mexican cautionary tale. The story Andrew told about something his father said had happened at a dance hall with a tall, movie star, handsome stranger who was at this dance, who was, being celebrated by 3 or 4 women at the same time dancing with him. High level of animal magnetism. Everybody's paying attention to this guy, but they realize the clacking that they're hearing on the dance floor are not his shoes, but of hooves, and then there's a poof and a disappear, and then the smell of sulfur, and they never, it took them a long time to get the smell of sulfur out of the dance hall, and then the burn in the floor is still there. Now, it can be totally unrelated, not saying Andrew's dad is being truthful, but that story has been around for a long time, and in fact, there's a Canadian version of that, and there's a very interesting and I think similar sounding Mexican version of that. I'll share it in just a second. But they all share a similar theme, except for what Andrew hadn't mentioned was whether or not there was a significance to the dance. In that, in some versions I hear it's a dance that's being held on a Sunday. So this was a cautionary tale for no dancing on Sunday. And sometimes it's presented as a dance during a holiday season where one was intended to be more observant of a somber mood, say, for example, during Lent or during the Easter season, and or it's just a cautionary tale like this one. This one actually comes directly from Mexico, and the version of the story I will read verbatim. It says here, it was submitted by a woman who said, "The story was told to me by my grandmother. It happened when she was about 40 years old. She was at a wedding dance, newly divorced, still very attractive. She was approached by a dark-haired gentleman, very tall and attractive. She described him as looking like a movie star. He walked up to her, wearing a long black overcoat, and held out his hand. She said he never spoke a word, but she was so amazed that this handsome man wanted to dance with her that she accepted. She said that he was an incredible dancer, very strong. He whispered for her to come outside the dance hall with him and come to his car. Luckily, my grandmother wasn't that kind of a lady. She refused, and he simply stopped in the middle of the dance floor and walked out. Now, my grandmother was turning to go back to her seat when her friend ran up to her and began pointing at the departed stranger. And that's when they saw, below his pants, black shoes had now become black hooves. The black hooves were below red, hairy legs, and swishing underneath the rim of his jacket was a long, red, hairy tail with a red tip. And the man turned to them as if he had sensed them and held up a finger to his mouth and then gave them a wink and left. My grandmother used the story to warn me that the devil comes in many guises, including those of incredibly handsome and dashing men. And she's never forgotten her dance with the devil. Well, just adding that up to our Halloween night fair. Not exactly a ghost story, but a good one nonetheless. And what did really, though, happen to you? That's what makes these stories so special. And we'll get back to them next. More of Ghost to Ghost. This is Ian Hunter. All right, let's just tell you up front, we've got a guy calling from China that I will get to sooner as opposed to later. Craig is in Utah, however, on Ghost to Ghost. Craig?
Hello.
Happy Halloween.
Yes, thank you. Well, I first started about this about 22 years ago. My son and I was going deer hunting. I had to work a little late, and we was going up to a cabin on the mountain where my dad and a bunch of his friends, people were up there camped already. We got there a little late in the evening, and we just went in our cabin in a cot in the hallway. And I got him tucked in, and I was laying there and lit up a cigarette. This little boy come walking up to the side of me there. Looked over at him and asked him, "What are you doing, little fella? Looking for the bathroom?" He didn't say anything, he just kind of turned around and went over into the bedroom where my sister was sleeping. And a couple minutes later, his lady got up, come walking by us in there in the hallway and went downstairs. A couple minutes later, she came walking back past us. A few minutes later, a man walked by us and went downstairs. Come back up past us, and I stopped the man and asked him if he had a little boy in there. I thought he was lost, like he was looking for the bathroom. He didn't say they didn't have no children with him. I found that just quite amazing. I got thinking about it after that, and I didn't really see any feet on the little guy. He just kind of floated away. So, just to my mind, there's no doubt in my mind, I was wide awake, smoking a cigarette, and that little fella was no more than a foot and a half face to face with me.
How about that? And that was the end of it. There's nobody that came through later on. Have you seen this child? Nothing. Nobody making any claim.
Never anything again. The only thing was on the way into the cabin, there was a sharp turn on the road on the way in there, and there was two little white crosses there. I got asking about them the next day, and there was two young boys back there a few years ago, and a camper flipped over.
Well, Craig, that's very interesting. I'm always sad when the ghosts are.
From the high desert and the great American Southwest, I bid you all good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Across this great globe of ours, all 25 time zones, whatever it is, prolifically covered by this program, Ghost to Ghost AM. Good morning. I'm Art Bell, filling in for George Norrie on this evening, this ghostly evening. And we're going to do something a little different this year. We're going to do unscreened ghost-to-ghost calls. Now, there will be certain rules, and I hope you will try and abide by them. Rule number 1 is only one ghost story per caller. I repeat, one ghost story per caller. Number 2, please try and use anything but a cell phone. I like cell phones. I've got one. They're useful in cases of emergency, but they're terrible for talk radio. Now, if you have a ghost story that is just so good that we all have to hear it, and you can only use a cell phone, well, then, so be it. But it better be awfully good to suffer over the indignities of a cell phone connection. And of course, please, only the very scariest stories. And I mean the scariest stories. I'll give you an example here in a moment. As a matter of fact, actually, I'll kind of pepper examples throughout the program. These were sent to me in the last several days, and I picked a few choice ones, and I'll sort of drop them in. But once again, this is an annual event. We only get to do it one day during the year. That is to say, when we have nothing but ghost stories. Now, I would prefer they be first-person ghost stories if possible. In other words, not something that your mom was told by your grandma, and so forth and so on. So, if it's a first-person ghost story, it's better. If it's not on a cell phone, it's great. Remembering only one story per customer. And oh, by the way, we took a Bell family Halloween photo. It's up on the website, right in the upper middle. If you go to coasttocoastam.com, you'll see it. They had fun doing that. The three of us. By the way, for those who are inquiring, all cats are fine. All our cats are just fine. Yeti, Abby, and our import Dolly, doing very, very well indeed. So, a picture of the three of us, myself, Aaron, and of course Asia. That's on the website. And then if you click on the webcam, there's a picture of just Asia there that I took the other day. I think really, really cute. But once again, this is Ghost to Ghost, folks. So let me run over it one last time. One story per caller, one ghost story, your very best effort. If you can do it on a landline instead of a cell phone, well, bless you. Remembering you've got to let it, we're not going to use screeners. So that means let it ring and ring and ring and ring. And that way you'll not be charged for any on-hold time or anything of that sort. We'll pick it up when we're ready to talk to you. And only the very scariest stories. I think this program has established over decades now, that there is indeed some sort of consciousness, some sort of continuation after death. Now, the nature of that continuation, we have not established. But with EVPs, with other proof, we've established pretty well, I think, that indeed there is some continuation following physical death. Ghosts would be certainly one mainline piece of proof of that continuation. So if you have a good ghost story, here we are. Now, if you're west of the Rockies, the number to call is 1-800-618-8255. 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. Remember, I will answer the phone, so it is up to you to have the radio turned all the way down right away as soon as you hear me answer. First-time callers, area code 818-501-4721. Area code 818-501-4721. Wildcard lines, we've got several of those. Pretty good chance to get through. At area code 818-501-4109. 818-501-4109 outside the country. The international line, call up your operator. have her connect you no matter where you are in the world to our toll-free international line, which is 1-800-893-0903. 1-800-893-0903. In a moment, Ghost to Ghost AM. Let's begin with something Kathy sent in from Springfield, Illinois. Art, let me preface this by saying my grandfather and I had always been very close. I know he would never have let any harm come to me in any way. Grandfather passed away in February of 1978. He had a heart attack in the bathroom of his home at about 3 in the morning. My grandmother was home alone. We took turns staying with her after the funeral. Now, about 3 weeks later, I was reading on the bed in the spare bedroom. Something caused me to look up. Coming out of the wall was what looked like my grandfather. He was transparent. You could see right through him, but he still had form. Words can never express how horrible he looked. He looked like he had dug his own way out of the grave. He had on a pinstripe suit, the one he was buried in. He had what appeared to be Spanish moss dripping from him. I live in Springfield, Illinois. Believe me, we don't have Spanish moss around here. I began to scream and get off the bed to run when he suddenly disappeared. Now, I didn't tell anybody because I was afraid people think I was crazy. This would be the end of the story, but 20 years ago, I found out my son had seen the same identical apparition. As close as we could estimate it, it was about 3 months later, in the front bedroom of our house. Other family members had seen dark forms standing over the bathroom sink doors and lights that turn on and off, and all this for no apparent reason. They're now 58 and 40, respectively, and we'll never forget the sight. Was it a ghost? A demon? I'll never know, but I know we saw it. I believe. And of course, that's what happens after you see for yourself, you believe. Let's go to the first-time caller line and say good morning. You have arrived at Ghost to Ghost as number 1.
Hi, Art. How are you doing?
Very well indeed, thank you.
I am so glad to talk to you. I racked my brain for a ghost story, and I couldn't think of it. What I really want to ask you.
Oh, no, this is ghost stories only. We don't have ghost stories. You shouldn't be calling.
I know, but I wanted to ask your AOL.com so I could get a picture of you and your family.
All right. Well, there's a picture of our family on the website right now. And that would be ghosttoghostam.com. Now, you see, the very first call was a violation of the rules. Ghost stories only. Ghost stories only. I'm trusting in you tonight because this is all unscreened. I'm just putting you on the air. Now, if something is said that you can go on the air, I can certainly eliminate it, but this is unscreened. That means it's the honor system. So, ghost stories only. West of the Rockies, you are on the air. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Raul.
Yes, sir.
I'm from Oklahoma, Washington.
All right.
And to just tell you a real quick story. Probably about 20 years ago, I was living with this friend of mine in this duplex. And just out of the blue, all of a sudden, I started getting all these scratches on my like soft parts of my body, like underneath my legs where my calves are.
Big wide scratches or like cat scratches or?
It looked like there was at least always 4 like rakes. It looked like I was getting raked on my back by my friends would joke and laugh. Hey, what did your girlfriend? Making jokes like that. And I was saying, hey, I don't know what I'm getting here. And then my dad, being in the medical field, he said, well, it's probably just some psoriasis or something like that. And I was thinking, well, I don't, and then I caught what kind of made me think more about it. I saw like this show with like spots on it. It was kind of like that's what was the only thing back in the 80s, that was like about paranormal stuff.
Were these like human scratches? I mean, like nails, human nails, or
yeah,
what?
It was like nail scratches, just like, and then they would almost pop up almost to the point where it would almost blood would but then they would go away. Just
did you ever feel it when it happened?
Just very, very, very vaguely.
very, very vaguely.
Was this occurring when you were asleep, or?
It could just occur at any time. We could just be sitting there at that time in the early 80s. We were sitting there watching some MTV or something, just sitting around hanging out, and all of a sudden I say, hey, look, guys, and I pull down my shirt, and then right there behind my neck is these rape marks, and then it caught my, like I say, that show, with that narrator, and they showed this same similar incident to this guy that was just in like Boston, and
So how did it resolve? Did it just go away, or what?
Finally, when we moved from that duplex, it just went away. And then finally, as years went on, people would say, yeah, you were a big mother like the stigmata, and I didn't even know what that was.
Mm-hmm.
I know about all this stuff and started listening to your show. And then I started hearing more about it, and I think, one of these days, I'm going to call Art. I'm going to do it. Sure enough, I get the first call.
This was the second call. This was your night then. Scratches. Wonder what that could be. Not safe, sure that it's a ghost, but human scratches on the body just suddenly appearing. Barely felt when they occur, but then turning up as big welts. East of the Rockies, good morning, you're on the air.
Hi.
Hi there. You're on a cell phone, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
So that means your story has to be extra good.
It is very good.
All right, go ahead.
Are we on?
Yeah, boy, right on the air. Yeah.
Okay. This is why I believe in ghosts. For 10 years, I was stationed at F.E. Warren Air Force Base, Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Yes, sir.
I was a security policeman, and we did maintenance, and we did security for all the missiles that were in the missile field. There were thousands of people that have been through this Air Force base, and all of them, I bet, can repeat this story. All right, the story goes. One day, a missile maintenance crew was out in the field. While they were working on the missile, a set of arms clamped a man. If you can imagine sticking up your finger in the air and grabbing it with a pair of pliers, that's what these arms are like. Because...
Wait a minute. Why would everybody know about this story?
Because when I finish, you're going to understand this is
all right.
The story. Okay. But I've never heard it repeated. So, this missile is held in place by these large clamps because it can take a direct hit from the nuclear missile. So these things are very, very soft.
Right.
So while he was working on the missile, for some reason, this clamp activated and pinched the man almost in half.
God.
So very quickly, they made a call back to the base, and as quickly as possible by helicopter, they flew out a medical crew. The man wasn't doing very well. His blood pressure was beginning to drop. So they asked him, is there anything that we can do for you? Because it doesn't look like that you're going to make it. The man said, yes, I would like to be able to tell my wife one more time that I love her. So they arranged to make a radio call to his wife. And he was able to speak to her one last time. After the phone call was finished, they said, all right, we're going to release this arm from you. The doctor told him, I don't think I'm going to be able to stop the bleeding. And this may be the end. So he said he was ready. They released the arm. And as the doctor said, the man died on the spot. The place where he died was Missile Silo Kilo 11. All right. As I said, these missile silos can take a direct hit from a nuclear missile. They have a 10-ton concrete door on top of the missile.
Right.
On the outside of the missile, there's nothing but a fence. They don't worry about people getting inside, so all you need is a fence. But there are alarms. There are alarms on top of the ground and below the ground. After this incident happened, almost every night, the alarm underneath the 10-ton door inside the missile where it was impossible for anyone to go would go off almost every single night.
Good Lord.
And the men would have to respond
Sure.
and go out there and check outside the fence all around, and then they would have to open the hole and go down where the missile was.
So he was still there.
So they say.
Yeah. I really appreciate the story. Thank you. I've heard similar stories. There was I think it was Law & Order, very famous Law & Order series in which a man in a similar fashion was squeezed by a subway train. And they actually got the train stopped, and it hit him about midline, in other words, right across the stomach. And as long as that subway was in place, much as the man who's talked about the arms around the missile, the blood flow or the blood pressure in the upper part of the body stayed roughly, kept him alive. But the very moment, of course, they moved the train or changed anything, blood pressure immediately dropped and the man passed away. So what that man just had to say about Kilo 11 was entirely possible. What followed, with that alarm going off on a nightly basis, is, it's why we're here talking about ghosts. Many times, spirits appear, and this is a part of life after death that I would love to have solved, because I think it kind of makes us all a little nervous. It sometimes appears as though a spirit, or an echo of a spirit, if you will, remains continually setting off alarms, or people getting a glimpse of the same thing again and again and again, like a terrible tape loop of something that wasn't finished. Wildcard Line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hi, how are you? And it's a pleasure to talk to you.
It's good to have you too, but you're also on a cell phone.
Yeah, I hope the source is not too bad for you. It will clear up.
Not too good at the moment, but go ahead and give it a try.
Okay, my name's Herbert. I'm a truck driver.
Yes, sir.
I was in the military, stationed on in Mayport, Florida. Lived on base housing, and we had a baby goat. The wife started hearing it at different times. It would cry, and when I started hearing it, I'm sure you're familiar with footy pajamas.
With what kind of pajamas?
We call them footy pajamas. It's got the seat.
Oh, sure, okay, I know.
Just up the middle. And I had two small boys, and sometimes at night I would hear the footy pajamas come in here to my room. And right there at my headboard, I think it was one of my sons. And I'd reach out, neither one of them be there, and I'd get up, go check on them, and they'd be sound asleep. So it was kind of funny at times, it kind of scared us. And then one night I heard the footy pajamas come into bed, and all my hair is staying on here right now. And I felt the foot of the bed go down. So I knew it was one of my sons climbing in bed with us. And I raised up, and the moonlight was coming through the window, and there wasn't nothing there whatsoever. And I couldn't scream, I couldn't holler, I was just terrified. And my wife, she was a real light sleeper. Anytime you touch her, she wakes up to see what's up or what I needed.
Sure.
I started shaking her on it. I almost tossed her out of bed. And just out of the blue, something come over me. I don't know what willed it over me, but I lost all emotion, all feeling. I wasn't scared, I wasn't anxious, I wasn't nothing. And something without the feeling of touch just made me lay back down and said I hit my pillow, I was out.
Were you paralyzed?
No, I mean, at one point when the feeling came over me, I didn't have no emotion. It's hard to describe. It was almost like a void. I had no feelings whatsoever.
Okay, so this was not sleep paralysis of any kind.
Oh no, I was wide awake because I was wide awake running some things in my head because I was going up for advanced exam the next day.
Yes.
And I was wide awake and I was running over these figures in my head so I could do good on my advanced test the next day. So I wasn't even asleep when it happened, but I
got it. All right. Well, listen, we're coming up on a break here. So I appreciate your call, and we'll continue with ghost stories. I've got a number that have been sent in to me, and I'll kind of pepper the program with those. But otherwise, we're depending on all of you non-cell phone people to call in. Ghost to Ghost AM, actually. On-screen calls. We're just picking them up as we get them tonight. But we do have some rules. One story per caller. Please, folks, don't use cell phones. The last caller was an example of why I'm making that request. For a story to be good, you got to be able to understand it, right? And please, only, if you will, the very scariest of the stories. In fact, if it didn't scare you, it probably won't scare us. Those are the numbers. We'd love to hear from you, and we will continue in a moment. Dear Art, this is not going to be the scariest story on tonight, but I guarantee every word of it is true. I'm a retired police officer. I've never had a supernatural encounter, seen a UFO. The following story is the closest I've come to a truly strange experience. Around 1990, at nighttime, a robber held up a small Asian bar, which was tucked into a mostly industrial area of the city. The solo patrol officer happened quickly upon the scene, confronted the robber, who was walking on foot in a nearby alley. The robber turned, smiled, and quickly crouched and reached for his gun in his waistband. In a classic one-on-one Western-style shootout, the type seen on TV, but really actually experienced by most police officers, the solo patrolman kept his cool, killed the robber on the spot. I was working that night, was on scene along with several other officers within minutes of the shooting. I eventually left to handle other calls, but a short while thereafter I was dispatched to the hospital. The robber's body was taken to do a follow-up report and secure evidence. I was in the hospital room where the robber is lying dead, shirtless upon a bed. His arms lay flat upon the bed, palms up alongside his legs. There was a hospital attendant in the room with me. I had 2 plastic bags with which I was going to bag the dead suspect's hands for later GSR tests. Stands for gunshot residue. To help determine that he had in fact fired a weapon. Well, as I opened the first bag and leaned over him to bag his right hand, the dead man's arm lifted straight up in the air in a perfect 90-degree angle with his elbow still on the bed and his right hand now pointed towards the ceiling. The attendant and I both gasped and stared at each other, and the attendant said something that you can't sound coast to coast. Well, that's it, Art. I won't embellish anything. Nothing further happened. Of course, it was a dead man's spasm, right? But it was the only dead man's spasm I ever saw. And the timing of it, in that I was literally about to reach for the same hand, was truly eerie. Even for a police officer, I figured he was either trying to cooperate in the end, or else he was going for one last desperate grab for his gun. And he goes on to give me the names of those involved in the city, and I won't relate that. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Is this Coast to Coast?
Yes, it is. Ghost to Ghost.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I've got a cat ghost story.
All right.
About a cat that passed away.
Yes, sir.
Basically said goodbye with the motion sensor light of the porch. You know, on the porch. When I was
yes, right. Uh-huh.
And it was crazy because it freaked me out in the beginning that the motion sensor was going off and there was no one around. But
well, sometimes insects can set them off.
Oh no, this wasn't set that sensitive. Like it had to be a person walking by or a car. But I think this was a way of the cat saying goodbye. And I'm okay because it had been hit by a car the day before.
No, I'm sorry. You know, it could be. Various things appear to us, and I'm not sure if our brain makes the connection because it wants to make the connection because we want to be able to say goodbye. We want to be able to say I love you or one last thing. And so sometimes our brain makes that connection. Sometimes perhaps there's a little more to it. Please make that West of the Rockies. You're on the line. Here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Candy, and I'm calling from Sacramento.
Yes, Candy.
Well, my story is a pretty scary one. I haven't told many people this throughout my lifetime. I'm 36 now.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the weather was hot
so it must have been around June or August in the summer months from school. And I was in the 6th grade. And the family was on vacation and at home. I didn't go with them wherever they went to. I can't remember that now. But Grandpa stayed with me, and he was in the living room, and I was coloring on at the dining room table. And I had one of these old organs in my room. And down the hallway, I could hear this music coming from the organ, and I knew I didn't leave it on. And it didn't play by itself. And it was beautiful yet eerie. And I kept coloring, and I thought, well, it's going to end anytime soon, but it kept going. And I kept more curious about it. So when I went down the hallway, there was this chill in the air. And Grandpa had told me a couple of months previously that if I were to experience anything scary, just to call on the name of Jesus, and everything would be all right. And I was getting scared by the moment I kept walking up the hallway to my room. And I called on the name of Jesus, but it didn't go away.
Did you get into the room?
I got so close to the doorway that the music was blasting my ears. And what happened was I didn't know what to do, and I didn't want to go back and get Grandpa because I thought I could handle this by myself. And
I can hear you. I can actually hear the fear in your voice as you're telling this.
I've been listening since 1998 to you and George Norrie. And this is the first time that I've ever been able to get onto the radio to tell my experience.
Okay, so what finally happened then? Did it just stop or what?
No, when I turned into the doorway real fast like, there was this thing that I can't describe to anybody, but I could draw pictures of it to...
okay, we'll try. You're going to have to give it a try. This thing,
yes.
It's a non-human thing. I guess if it was human, you wouldn't say thing, would you?
No, it was unearthly. I have no formal description of how to put into words what it looked like, but it was red, and it was glowing, and it must have been a demon that I saw.
Did it have a form, a body, arms, legs, that kind of thing, or any appendages at all?
Yes, and it was using its hand-like fingers on my organ player.
Yes.
And it looked straight at me with yellow eyes. And
red with yellow eyes.
yeah, it was the most unbelievable, undescribable being. And I'm shaking right now, but it challenged me at the age of 6 years old. So I said, in the name of Jesus Christ, be gone, I command you. And it lifted its head up like it had never been told this before, and just vanished.
All right, well, that's some story, and those are some words from a 6-year-old. I really appreciate your call.
Well, thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for making it. Take care. Yellow eyes, huh? Listen, I've got a picture up on the website you might want to see. I'm pretty picky when it comes to so-called ghost photographs. I don't latch on to just any, but this was sent to me by Robert. It arrived about a week and a half ago or so, It's obviously taken in an ICU room in a hospital in Colorado. And it was just a nurse testing a new camera, testing a flash in a new camera. Nobody else in the room, and yet if you look in the mirror, you will clearly see somebody dressed in what appears to be perhaps a uniform, sort of half there and half gone. It looks like an old uniform to me. Looks like whoever this is has been around for some time. This has to be one of the best photographs I think I've ever seen, so you might want to go take a look at that. Again, from the Colorado ICU room. And Robert, I want to thank you for sending that along. It's really a good one. I can usually pick apart the ghost photograph and say, well, it's this or it's that, but if you look carefully at the mirror, the objects reflected and all the rest of it, there's nothing at all bogus about this one. On the wildcard line, you are on the air. Good morning.
Yes, Art.
Hello there.
This is Lee from Phoenix.
Yes, Lee.
I got a ghost story for you.
Good one?
Well, you be the judge. When I was a kid, a freshman in high school, and got to run around with other kids on Friday and Saturday night, dragging the man and stuff, one of the guys, older guys, said, hey, if you guys been out to the cemetery, he says, damn the same. He says, we was out there a couple of weeks ago with our girlfriend, because sometimes they go out there and they find a place they park and make out with their girlfriend. He says, we got out and we went up to this one grave that had this enormous upright headstone that was taller than we were. And the girl said to us always, she says, I didn't know we were by this one. She said, let's just go back to the car. He said, well, why? He said, because it's haunted. He said, what do you mean? She said, if you say, there's no man right there, and he said, if you walk up and you stand at his foot totally on the stroke of midnight and say, hey, old man, what are you doing there? He'll answer you back and he'll say, nothing at all. Anyway, we said to our friend, no, we never heard about it. So he drove us out there. We were just kind of really nervous. And we did. We walked up to stroke of midnight. He said, like you said, and sure as heck, the old man answered me. He said, nothing at all.
And you heard that clearly.
Don't you get it out?
Yes, I did. Nothing at all.
Thank you, Art.
That's fairly normal in the world of spirits. A repetitive this and repetitive that. But, I don't think any one of us want to think that we just sort of hang around in a place where our body is returning to the earth slowly, year by year, and do the same thing over and over again. Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, this is Bill from Southern California.
Hi, Bill.
I got a ghost story for you.
Fire away.
It deals with Native American burial. Still there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm an archaeologist. I don't have a PhD, but I do have a master's. And I was working on a survey crew, and we found an area that had a lot of broken pottery and whatnot. And we stopped it and we went on. Came back to it a couple days later, started excavating, and the equipment's still here, like you would not believe. The laptops are so dead. You come out of an area, they come back on. They go back in, they go back off. Generators, same way. The lights and stuff. It was just a crazy deal.
In other words, something was taking all the energy, at least temporarily, from whatever you brought in that had it.
Yes, there it was. And our little base camp that we had set up, we had a cook and everything. The first night there, our personal equipment was found in trees and scattered all over the place, so we thought it might have been animals or something.
Mm-hmm.
Second night, the cook, he came out the next morning, he was mad because everything, around the camp cook area was just scattered all over the place. When we started excavating, we started finding human remains. Well, that brought Native American in to monitor this area. And this was going on for like a
usually archaeologists or anybody else are prohibited from digging in areas of that kind, aren't they?
It depends on what they're going to do. They're going to put a freeway through the earth. If they're digging like a pipeline, they got to remove the remains, or they try to reroute it, that kind of thing. So where we were at, it was going right through the center of the valley, and reroute the area for fiber optic.
Okay, so how did it resolve?
Say again?
How did it end?
Oh, how did it end? Well, the elder got a hold of a spirit, a shaman, but a spirit, and he told us if we wanted to come and go into a sweat lodge, to sweat out and do some incantations that he had done. And then once we done that, he gave us a piece of ribbon, or colored cloth, and he told us to carry one piece with us and tie one piece onto our tent. Those that went, nothing happened. Those that didn't, everything happened over again.
In other words, things scattered, things going off. Got it. Well, once again, I don't think I would go digging in such an area. And usually, as I mentioned, once you begin discovering a Native American artifacts, they stop you from digging almost immediately, and for a very good reason. First time caller line, you're on the air.
Good morning, Art. I just wanted to fill you in on a story that I was lucky enough to experience myself. My name's Chris. I live in Virginia.
Yes, Chris.
When I was a child, I was staying over at my aunt's house, who had a furnished basement. It was the middle of the night, about 2 in the morning. I hadn't slept yet, and I made sure to double check to make sure I hadn't slept in this situation. Excuse me. Anyway, while I was sitting there attempting to go to sleep, a lady appeared. You have to understand that the area that I was at also used to be a battlefield for the Civil War. So this lady appears in a beautiful gown, and a gentleman came up to her. These were full-bodied apparitions, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Completely visible.
Almost solid.
Almost solid, all right.
Yeah, I mean, they were very close to it. Anyway, he was wearing a blue uniform, so obviously I think we have an idea of what side he was on.
Yes.
And they embraced, and they were seemed to be having a romantic interlude, I'd have to call it.
Wow.
All of a sudden, a gentleman in gray appeared in a tattered gray beat-down uniform.
Right.
With bayonet in hand. He ran up to the gentleman in blue and started sticking him.
My God.
Over and over, repeatedly gutting this gentleman with the bayonet. And when I say gutting, I mean intestines hanging off the end of the bayonet, kind of go. It was quite nasty. And then, after a few moments of that sticking him, and she forget to start freaking out, understandably, vanished.
So it's kind of like you had a north-south battle of manifest right in front of you on all apparently, I guess you would guess, over a woman.
That's the best thing I can say. Best reaction to it. The gentleman in blue, definitely dead. No question about that.
Was all this just visual, or did you hear things as well?
You could hear little bits and pieces, but not very loud. You know, you could hear, her crying kind of deal, her trying to stop. You could hear a groan here and there, you could hear a stick occasionally.
And so once all this was over, they all just faded away, huh?
It wasn't even a fade away, it was a poof, gone.
Poof, gone, all right. Well, poof, gone is what we have to be right now. This is Ghost to Ghost AM. One correction, that episode was not Law & Order. The one in which the man was crushed by the train was Homicide Life on the Street. So that was a few years yet earlier. But it was still an incredible episode. I wonder how many of you remember that. This is Ghost to Ghost AM. Now, listen everybody, unscreened calls. We're not screening the calls at all, so it's up to you. They've got to show will only be as good as your stories. One story per customer. Please try to use anything but a cell phone. And I still have yet to get you to use cell phones, so please, if you can, get to a corded phone. Only the scariest stories need apply. We'll be right back. The following is from Bill in Rockford, Illinois. There's a house here in north central Illinois known to the locals simply as the Penfield Place. The house's eerie legacy began back around the turn of the century when a kitchen fire took the lives of 2 small children and a servant. Next, an undertaker took up residence, whose wife fell headlong down the main staircase there, breaking her back and her neck, killing her instantly. The funeral director's body was discovered a few months later in his own backyard, swaying from the branches of a maple tree where he had hanged himself in despair. Then, the real tragedy commenced. A newlywed couple by the name of Penfield bought the place, moved in, and one night, not long after, the young bride, Mara Penfield, went missing. The jealous husband was always suspected in her disappearance, but nothing ever came of it, not until a decade later, in the 1940s, when 17-year-old Mara Penfield was finally found again. Her sad remains were unearthed by some workmen in the backyard of her former home, buried beneath that infamous maple, been stabbed, rolled up inside an oriental carpet, appendages dismembered and removed to only God and the killer knows where. Her missing limbs were never found. After that, the house went really bad. Future tenants would experience a frightening presence there, one which loomed over them as they slept and circled the bed, sometimes even touching their extremities inquisitively. A soft voice could be heard whispering, "Am I dead? Am I dead?" And once an abomination was witnessed by a group of New Year's Eve revelers, a hideous shape crawling across the second-floor stair landing in the darkness as if searching blind for something. When somebody let out a scream, the form raised up suddenly and glided away, nightmarish and black with no face to speak of. The large dwelling eventually fell victim to neglect and was converted into a tenement room and boarding. But I can distinctly remember once in the 1970s when a young expectant mother living there broke out in a high fever one night and miscarried inside that same shuttered house, giving birth afterward to a stillborn boy at a nearby hospital. A stillborn baby boy, extremely misshapen and underdeveloped, no legs, no arms. The rambling old Penfield place still stands today, decaying and in ruins, a monument to all our very worst fears as human beings. First time caller line, you're on the air. Hello? Yes, hello. Turn the radio off, please.
Hello.
Hi.
Is this Art?
It is.
Hi, Art. This is Judy from Huntsville, Alabama.
Hi, Judy.
I just wanted to tell you a story about a doll.
A doll?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. My mother and Dad bought me a doll. The last one they ever bought me was the size of a 3-year-old child. One night, many years later, I had the doll and standing up in the corner of the bedroom. I was reading a book, and all of a sudden, out of my peripheral vision, I saw something move. And it startled me, of course, and I looked up, and I looked toward the doll, and the doll raised its arm and put it down.
Oh, right. Now, in this modern day, let me just stop you for a moment. I've seen the ads for them. Today they sell dolls that are, like a 3-year-old size, 2 or 3-year-old size, and infant size.
Right.
And they do move, and they do say things. They even memorize the name you give them.
Right, but I'm 58 years old.
I hear you. So there was no name memorized, or there was no movement. This was just a doll.
Just a plain doll, the size of a 3-year-old child.
And you saw her raise her arm.
She raised it up. She put it down. It, of course, terrified me. I broke out in a cold sweat. And the only thing I knew to do was to go and pick the thing up and take it and put it in the den. And I did that. Well, the next day I told my family about it. And, of course, some believed me, some didn't. My mother said, well, I don't want you to do away with the doll because that's the last one we bought you. You know, it's sort of sentimental. She took it over to her apartment. She said, I'll keep it. Okay. Things started happening at her apartment. She woke up one night out of a deep sleep, and she said standing beside her bed was a dark figure. And the only way she could describe this, it was during Star Wars, was it looked like Darth Vader. But, you know, to me, it was like a demon.
Not the doll, though.
No, it wasn't a doll. It was a dark figure standing beside her bed.
Do you think the doll brought this to her?
I think it did. And also, she had a plant on a plant stand. And I've seen this in other stories before about possession and different things like this. The plant was shaped by itself. And my mother was a very smart woman. You know, she wasn't given to delusions or anything like that. And she started telling me all this stuff. And I said, well, I think we need to get rid of this doll. I don't know what's wrong with it, but I think I'm going to try to get in touch with Ed and Lorraine Warren and try to, you know, see if there's something wrong with this doll.
So did you get rid of it?
Well, I got married. My husband put the doll out in the trash. And they picked it up, so I have no idea where the doll is now, but I hope no little child has the doll.
It's probably out, just walking around the trash yard somewhere.
I don't know, but this is the truth. I mean, I'm a nurse. I'm not a person given to delusions or hallucinating or anything like that. But
Trust me, I believe you.
I don't like dolls.
That's why we do these programs. Thank you very much. We do them because these things really do happen. I've had, and I won't go into details, but I've had a few cursed things like dolls sent to me. And some pretty strange stuff happened. People come into the possession of something like what she was just talking about, that doll, and they don't know what to do with it. And so they end up, in the old days, when I was doing a 5-day, 6-day-a-week show, they'd send them to me, and they would tell me this, whatever it is, I won't go into what it was, is cursed. No, mistakenly, I did keep something for a few days, and what a mistake that was. Good morning, welcome to the Rockies, you're on the air.
Hello? I'm calling about a man under a table in
Turn your radio off for me, sir, that's number one.
Yeah, I'm calling about a ghost in Bishop, California, under a bed, under a table.
Under a table or a bed?
A table. I was sleeping in my uncle's sister's house in Bishop, California. We were on vacation, and I was sleeping in the living room facing the kitchen. And when I woke up at 3 in the morning, voices calling me from the kitchen. I woke up, and everyone was asleep around the living room, and I could see the kitchen. I looked in the kitchen, I got up, I could see somebody under the table calling me with his hand. I could see his dark figure calling me.
Actually audibly calling you or sort of beckoning you to come?
A guy under the table calling me, like, come here, like, come to the dark side. I'm like, fuck that. I mean.
Okay, well, all right. Unfortunately, you just used some language that I can't have on the air, so I had to eliminate that. That's what happened there, folks. I understand that people get very emotional when they're telling a story, but there are certain words, the deadly seven, I think they are, that have been articulated that you cannot use on the air, and so we have a special little thing to eliminate that, and that's what just happened. He got to a part of the story where he indicated emotionally with the word we couldn't use that he was not about to follow the suggestion of that ghost. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Good morning. Hello? Wildcard.
Los Angeles?
Yes, Los Angeles.
Hi, how are you? Happy Halloween.
I'm just fine.
Okay, this is like...
Okay, turn your radio off first here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's going to be very confusing for you otherwise, because we're putting you directly on the air, so... All right. And what is your first name?
Rebecca.
Rebecca, go right ahead.
Hi, okay. This
many, many years ago, and hate to say it, but a friend of mine and I were using a Ouija board, and I since learned not to use Ouija boards, but this was before I knew better.
Yes.
And we were talking to, various spirits, and we eventually got an evil spirit that came on. So we decided, okay, let's get rid of the evil spirit. That was enough for the night. And it kind of freaked us out a little bit. And the evil spirit was basically saying how she wanted to kill my friend, and she was going to get my friend, and all this kind of stuff. So before I left my friend's apartment where we were doing the Ouija board, I told her, well, I don't know much about this stuff, but I'll try and help you however way I can to, prevent you from being killed. So I left the apartment to go home. It was around 2 in the morning at that time. And I'd taken maybe about 10 steps out of her apartment. And, it was pitch black. No one was up. It was really quiet. And all of a sudden, I heard something. It was like someone stood right next to me and screamed in my ear. And what it said was, don't help her, you jerk. Don't help her, you jerk. So, of course, that totally freaked me out. So I ran back to my friend's apartment and I'm like, help, let me in.
Sure.
So she calmed me down a little bit. We kind of talked about it. And what she said was that she was going to send her guardian angel home with me to kind of protect me, because now we thought this thing might be after me. So I kind of poo-pooed it. I was like, yeah, right, her guardian angel. But, I figured, why not? Because I didn't really know too much about it. Didn't know if I believed or not. It was getting late, so I eventually go back up to my car, and I'm starting to drive home, and I'm driving along on the freeway. And then all of a sudden, as I'm driving along, bam, right in the passenger seat of my car, this man appeared. Like fully formed, completely solid, not like ghostly, wearing jeans and a shirt. He basically turned towards me, smiled, waved, and then disappeared. And I was like, wow, the guardian angel really did follow me home.
Well, maybe. I mean, these are reasons why you don't screw around with Ouija boards. Because what happens is you open doors that you didn't expect to open and that you cannot close.
Well, I realize that now.
And so I take it now, somebody presented you with a Ouija board and said, let's have some fun. You'd go the other way.
Yeah, exactly. Because I did use the Ouija board a few times after that, but every time I did, I noticed my life would get bad. Bad stuff would start happening, and I finally connected it. So I got rid of my Ouija board. And
so you're not a real fast learner.
It's been like 10 years since I've used one, so it's not quite well.
All right, thank you. It's pretty widely known that years ago I did use a Ouija board. I won't tell the story. It scared me so badly. What occurred scared me so badly. Maybe one day I'll tell the story. Don't use a Ouija board. Don't screw around with Ouija board. That really is a lesson that you ought not have to learn the hard way. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Morning. In 1958, I was 10 years old. It was a family tradition that we would meet at my grandmother's house on Easter Sunday. My mother was growing up on Friday, and my father was an Atlanta City policeman, a big man, never saw him afraid of anything in his life. He picked me up, and we headed for a small town in Tennessee. On the way up, all my life, and my brothers and sisters, we'd passed this house that had an iron gate, and we called it the haunted house. My dad's, I stopped. I said, Dad, can we stop and look? And we didn't have anything to do, and he wasn't too eager to get to my grandparents' house too early. So we got out and went in. Dad walked up on the front porch, and I started up a flight of stairs inside. And, like a kid with a little bravado, I ran right to the top of the steps. As soon as I got to the top of the steps, there was about a 3-year-old girl standing, looking at me. My little blonde-haired girl, nothing extraordinary about her. And I said, Dad, there's a girl up there. My dad thought maybe some squatters were in the house. And he ran up the steps behind me, and as soon as the little girl saw my dad, just went straight across the hall into a bedroom and slammed the door. My dad walked up to the bedroom door. My dad was a big man. He was not afraid of anything. He pushed the door. The door pushed him back so hard he almost fell down. That made my dad mad. He got up and gave the door to boot. The door flew off the hinges and we went in the room. It was about a 11 by 11 bedroom, 2 windows going outside. closet, and the closet was just 4 walls, wood panels, solid. My dad knocked on everything in the room. He knocked all over the floor, and we found nothing. So my dad and I went back outside, and my mother was related to the sheriff in a small town right where we were. And my dad went down there. He thought that people were squatting there, and was also alarming the little girl might be in some kind of trouble.
Sure.
My dad told the officer there what had just taken place. And the officer went into the chief's office, and the chief was related to my mother. And the chief came out and called my dad and I into another office. He opened the file cabinet, he pulled out a file, and the file was a newspaper article. That house had belonged to a doctor that the copper company had brought in there to treat their miners. The doctor was in Atlanta. The doctor's wife evidently had a boyfriend. And the doctor came back to his home. His maid told him that his wife wasn't there, that she was downtown. When he went downtown, he shot the lover, he shot the mother, went back to the house, and shot the little girl, and shot himself.
Oh my God. And so that little girl, or her spirit, or what was left of her, remains in that house.
The article went on to say that people heard the little girl. He shot the maid also, but the little girl was the last alive, and she went running up the steps screaming, and they were gunshot.
Wow. I really appreciate your story, sir, and your call. I don't know, again, what this tells us about life after death. Many ghost stories are associated with violent deaths. Many ghost stories are associated with suicides. In other words, some sort of very traumatic, unfulfilled, unrequited love. All of these things seem to bring about a continued presence. Now, whether this is a contemporary awareness or it's just some sort of echo of what was, it's hard to say. Either way, certainly it's freaky. Wildcard Line, you're on the air.
Hello, yes, Coast to Coast?
Yes, it is. Coast to Coast. Turn your radio off, please.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
Hey?
Yes, I'm Kevin Palmer. I'm sorry for the last name. I'm Kevin in Iroquois Falls, Ontario.
Yes.
And I have to say, the first time I listened to Coast AM, I get it to the end, and I was listening to older episodes, and I invoked the demon when I listened to Coast AM.
While you were listening to Coast to Coast?
Well, I got into Coast to Coast AM to my friends on Pal Talk, and they sent me a link for some of the shows, and I invoked the demon when I was listening to Pal Talk. And his name is JC.
All right, thank you very much for the call. That's not exactly a ghost story, although there's a little bit of terror certainly involved in it. JC. This is Ghost to Ghost AM. We'll be right back. Fascinating. How many stories I get from police officers, ER nurses, and doctors, but they don't ever want to be named, or rarely. I protect them anyway. Matt from Plainfield, Illinois, says, this is just a fast blast. I used to be a narcotics detective. One night I was called to the scene of a drug-related murder. When I arrived, I saw a man standing over the dead body, telling him to get up. Long story short, it was the dead man yelling at his own corpse. We'll be right back. You know, even though what we're doing tonight are ghost stories, this is really all about whether there is some kind of existence after physical death, right? Barbara says, not that scary, but this is the reason I believe our spirits go on after we leave our physical bodies. In 2000, my ex-wife and I were expecting our youngest son. I was in the Navy at the time. We lived in San Diego. I was on a 6-week exercise in Hawaii. When I got a sudden Red Cross message that I needed to get home, my ex-wife had to have emergency surgery, and there was a very good chance she'd lose the baby at 5 months. I was able to get emergency leave and plane ticket, made it to the hospital 21 hours later, just before she went in. The surgery went fine, though there were a few touchy moments, and we went home a few days later. For the next couple of months, my ex began talking in her sleep. The conversations always sounded friendly, though I could never make out quite what was said. She'd never talked in her sleep before and didn't say anything about having strange dreams, so I left her alone. She was put on bed rest, and we were at the doctor's office about twice a week. I was worried and prayed every night for my son to be healthy. My ex went into labor, and it was a problem, and then another problem, and a problem after that. There were issues with pain medication they put her on, problems with monitoring equipment, you name it, it happened. When my son was born, he didn't have a heartbeat, wasn't breathing, and was a light blue color. I think every doctor in the hospital that night was in the room, and I can't say enough good things about them. They placed my son on a cart and ran out of the room. There were people taking care of my ex, trying to make sure she was going to make it, so I went to find my son. I was not familiar with the area, that area of the hospital, and there wasn't anybody around to ask, because everybody was trying to either care for my ex or my son. I heard someone call my name on my right side, so assuming it was a doctor, I went towards the sound. Then another voice called my name from down the hall. I'm running down the hall, and the word "here" filled my head. I really can't describe it. I looked, and there was my son being worked on. I walked into the room. The doctor looked at me. He had this look on his face, and I just know it wasn't good. The nurses just looked at me. I began to cry because I knew my son was dead. Now, this is where it all gets a little strange. I noticed some movement out of the corner of my eye. It was very fast, so I looked in that direction. There wasn't anything there. I walked over to where the little baby was. I was going to touch him, my hand an inch over his chest. The doctors were doing whatever they were doing a little away from me. They'd totally given up. Then, out of the blue, my son starts slightly moving and lets out this huge, strong cry. Of course, I jumped a little. I lost my balance and began to fall backward. I turned a little, trying to right myself and see the window. Both of my grandmothers were there in the reflection, smiling. And it looked as if they were staring at the table, smiling at my little boy. After that, he did have a few medical problems, a couple of surgeries, fixed a few things. Now, a healthy 70-year-old. The only thing about him is, well, that's strange. He talks from time to time about angels that he sees at night. He says that sometimes they're old ladies, sometimes they're mommy's age, but he says they always look kind of the same. I did find a picture of one of my grandmothers a couple of years ago, and he pointed to it right away and said, "Granny." So, I'm sure they came to help. That's our story. Happy Halloween. East of the Rockies, you are on the air. Good morning.
Art.
Yes.
This is Wayne from Pennsylvania. So my dad, he had 16 brothers and 5 sisters, and he was the 7th son. And one time, he bought me a box of cracker jack with a toy in it. Then I took it upstairs and put my drawer.
I remember those stories, yes.
And so I went down and played outside a little bit. I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I decided to go up and get it. And then the door was locked. We were locking the door. It was like, I couldn't push it open. So I looked under the door, and I could see these seats in the exhaust seat. And I pushed, and all of a sudden it opened. I seen it going out the window, and my toy was gone. And
say something like a dog had taken your toy, not let you in the room?
All I see was just 2 dogs. I didn't see the rest of the body.
But they were like dog feet.
Yeah, and my toy was gone. It went out the window quick. Then, when Marie got me, when I was about 14, and my mom and my dad were separated, and all of a sudden, about 2 o'clock in the morning, there was like a big explosion in my head. And I got up, ran out the kitchen, and my mom said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I said, "Something's wrong with Dad." And I said, "He went, distance away." And she said, "Nah, it can't be." I said, "Mom, there's something going on with those. I
about an hour later, she got a phone call. She got hit by a tractor trailer.
I'm so sorry. There are so many stories like that. For some reason, people, they seem to know when something awful is happening to a relative. Now, I have no idea how that happens or why that happens, but it does. That communication takes place. A relative somewhere has died, and as that man said, it's like an explosion in your head. You just suddenly know. And you've got to ask yourself, what mechanism transmits that message? It really is mysterious as other things that we cannot explain. Wildcard Line, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi. I have a story about EVP. Are you?
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Niagara Falls, Canada.
Okay.
And my name is Cindy.
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, we were, my boyfriend, myself, and a friend decided to go hunting, and we brought our digital recorders with us, and we were out, in the graveyard down in Niagara-on-the-Lake. I'm not sure if you know where that area is or not. Okay, we were down in one of the graveyards down there, and so we were there for about an hour, and we were just about to leave, and my boyfriend goes, well, why don't you try just ask a couple more questions before we leave. So anyways, we asked a couple more questions, and then my friend for some reason goes, oh, I wonder if somebody's going to come home with us. And I'm like, that's not even funny, don't even joke about that, right? So then we get into the car, and I'm like, well, let's listen to what we've got, right, see if we have anything. So we're driving back, we get to the part on the tape, well, not even on tape because it was digital, but we get to that part where she says that, and clear as day you hear on it, go home. And we don't know who it was like any of us saying it, but it's clear as day you just hear somebody say go home.
And I assume you kept going home.
Yeah.
That's because EVPs work. Now, what they are, of course, we don't know, but we know they're real. That's why I continue to have my EVP guests on here, because they're real. And if you doubt it, get a recorder. If you've got the cojones for it, take it to a graveyard or somewhere else where there might be spirits about. Do a few hours of recording. Come home and then send me an email or let me know what was said. Fact of the matter is, EVP works. What it really is, we have no way of knowing. But it's not a joke, and those who take the time and trouble to really go out and try it inevitably get something they cannot explain. First time caller line, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. This is Vince from Wyoming. I got a ghost story for you.
Yes, well, it's got to be extra good since you're on a cell phone.
Okay, well, going across Pennsylvania one time, back in the 70s, the truck got awful cold inside. Look over in the passenger seat, there's like an entity sitting there.
Oh, this is good.
Well,
when you say an entity, describe if you can what you saw.
A very, very light shade of white.
Okay.
And that was it.
In the form of a human being, or what?
No, I can't say it was in the form of a human being. It was just something in white was sitting over there in that passenger seat.
And you managed to stay on the road?
Yeah. It didn't bother me. It
didn't bother you?
Not at all.
Okay, I appreciate the call, but I don't understand that at all. If something manifested itself next to me on a truck or car seat, I would be awfully lucky to stay on the road. In fact, I don't know how I'd stay. No idea how. West of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Hi, my name is Tanya.
Hi, Tanya.
Hey, I just want to say that I've had several ghost experiences in my life.
Well, we only have time for one, so give us your best.
Okay, let me think about it. Well, I just moved recently to Washington State, and two separate incidents, a very similar kind of event. I was laying in bed, and I felt like he was walking towards me, and I was like, what? I looked up, nothing was there. I laid back down, and then I felt something close to me again. I was trying to ignore it, and nobody was in the room for me, and I felt something like lean on me toward the kind of my chest, and something screamed into my right ear, just like a scream. And then a separate incident was the same kind of thing.
also same kind of pressure on me, and I couldn't see my right ear the second time, but it just like saved me. The screams like, save me.
Really? And what did you do?
Oh, straight enough, I wasn't really that scared because I've had other experiences before, but I tried to go back. Well, the first one, I actually jumped out of bed and I said, okay, I better get in the shower and wake up. The second one, it was actually while I was right before I went to sleep, and I just was like, okay, I'm going to ignore this, put the cover over my head and go back to bed. But it was really weird.
The Lord saved me have obvious meaning, so didn't you feel compelled to get up and investigate, try to help somebody?
Well, I mean, honestly, when I heard the one that I heard something about save me, it was like really cold in my right ear, and I felt like there was something really green on your chest. Originally, I thought my boyfriend was sitting right next to me, and I thought, well, maybe it was psychic energy. At first, I think the psychic energy was telling me something, I don't know, but a tree fell down behind her house maybe around that time, and he said maybe the tree was trying to save me, I don't know, but I was like, I had to go to sleep, I had to go to work, and I think I was like, okay, I'm like kind of scared, so I'm just gonna like try to like go to sleep, but it freaked me out. I mean, the first one happened, I jumped out of bed, and I thought, this, whatever it is, trying to tell me it's trying to get me out of bed. It's like, don't sleep anymore. Then you better get out of bed and start the day.
Okay, well, if that had happened to me, I'm sure it would have worked. I doubt that I would have slept the rest of the night. Whether or not I would have gotten awakened and tried to help somebody, I don't know. East of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
Mike from Indianapolis.
Hi, Mike.
And I'm just calling. I had a story when I lived in Kentucky in 1993, and it's very interesting, and it involves some pretty famous landmarks there in Kentucky. To begin with, I was a teenager, a senior in high school, and I had missed my bus for school. And seeing as I really had to graduate, and I didn't want to get get in trouble from my father, I decided I better get to school as fast as I can.
For me, that was usually a reason to stay home. Miss the bus, Mom.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And, it seemed to be around this time, actually, probably beginning of November. And, there's a place there called Valley Station, Kentucky. And, I was going to school, and I kind of ran a lot when I was younger. And, so I was kind of jogging, and I was new to the area at the time. I just moved there. And, what happened was I decided to take a shortcut, and from this experience, it was ill-advised. And I took the shortcut to get to school, on time, a little bit earlier to not get in trouble. So I'm jogging up this hill, and I pass this golf course, and I get to the end of the top of this hill, and it is a place called Waverly Hills Sanatorium. And of course, everybody's heard of it now, but at the time, I had no idea, of the actual experiences there. But, I was jogging, I had my headphones on, and decided, at the time that place was abandoned around 1993. And so I'm jogging through this place because the gate is usually, it just sort of gets left open. And so I'm jogging through, and I'm heading west towards what's known as DC Highway. And I get to the, top of the hill, and I pass the actual hospital, and I'm listening to my headphones, my music's blaring, and I head, past the hospital, get to the behind of it, to the west side of it. To the right of me was a strange shed, and to the left of me was another kind of strange angled down shed-looking thing. I'm not sure to this day. I've never been there ever since this time.
Okay, so what happened?
So actually what happened was I had stopped to take a break. And my, I stopped and I decided to turn off my headphones. And when I did, there was these strange sounds and voices. And it seemed like hundreds of them all around me. At the time, I had no idea that this place was supposedly haunted. I'm, not very easily scared. So I had, turned around and said, shut up. And right at that instant, there was no more voices, and all the voices shut up, all at once. And I said, it's kind of odd. And I looked to my right of me at this shed, and in the window look at me with an eerie look, and I got scared. And I started running down the other side of the hill to the back side of the hospital as fast as I could. And I was running and running and had a feeling, you know, like just things were around me. I got to the bottom of the hill for these railroad tracks. And what seemed to appear out of nowhere was a man and his dog. And this dog came running up to me, and it was a Rottweiler, a large Rottweiler. And I was getting scared, and I told the man, you know, hey, does your dog bite? And the man never answered. It was a man in a trench coat, a large man with a long beard. And I repeatedly said, hey, does your dog bite? Does your dog bite? And he said, he never says anything until the dog comes up to me and just seems to barely nudge my pant leg. He looks over at the man, and the man, you know, says something. Says, who are you? You know, I say my name, you know, Mike, you know, and I just got here from Chicago. I thought actually that I was walking through a marijuana field and the guy was getting mad. So, you know, that happens a lot, you know, in Kentucky. So I'm thinking, you know, I better keep it cool, you know, get some dog on me or, you know. And I say, hey, you know, I'm just late for school, passing on through.
Okay, Mike, we've got to get to the end of it here.
Oh, okay, sorry. So I say, you know, okay, I'm sorry. And, you know, the guy, you know, I say, well, I'm late for school. You know, the guy says, you know, hey, leave, and don't look back. And so I run off, and I'm walking down the railroad tracks towards the Doss High School over there. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, I'm not going to look back, you know, and what man is not going to look back?
Right.
And as I look back, the man and his dog is gone. But in that field where I was standing was about over 100 apparitions, gray-looking figures.
What have been all those voices?
And they were just looking at me. And I ran to school, and for a long time, nobody believed me. Until recently, I found out that place was so famous. And I just wanted to let that story out. And I just wanted to let people know
that it really is true. Mike, what do you think happens to you after you die?
I'm really not sure, but I think that there probably is heaven and hell because, you know, I don't see why a book like the Bible would survive for so many years.
It's a good point, but if it really is a heaven and hell, then where did these people come from, Mike?
Well, maybe they had just, like the stories go, you know, maybe the stories are right, and they are, excuse my French, damned or cursed.
And just around. Thank you very much for the call, Mike. So, in this case, hundreds of spirits, first in voice, and then almost in flesh. Ghost 07, you're on a ride, all right, and you just never know when it's going to end. Remember, folks, we're doing unscreened ghost stories from you, all of you. So, one story per caller. Please try not to use a cell phone. Get to a corded phone if you can, and only the very scariest stories. If it didn't scare you, it's very unlikely to scare us. Back with more in a moment. Remember, turn your radio off right away when I pick up. Here's a ghost story from an emergency room in Arizona. Art, I'm an x-ray technician who was working at an Arizona hospital back in November of 2006. My work hours at the time, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. graveyard shift, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On a Saturday morning, around 1 or 2 in the morning, the ER called to tell my partner that an ambulance was en route with a 50 to 60-year-old male patient who was non-responsive with a thready pulse. We were to stand by and be ready to do a portable chest x-ray, post-trachea intubation. When the time came, my partner went to do this portable x-ray, leaving me alone in the x-ray control room not more than 4 or 5 minutes after he'd left an older white male dressed in faded blue jeans and a stained white t-shirt. He came to the door of the control room. Now, this is a difficult task because you need an electronic card key to access the area at this time of night. So I looked up from my paperwork, noticed this man, and asked, "Sir, can I help you?" He seemed to be looking for something or someone, but didn't answer. I asked again, "Sir, can I help you? Are you looking for someone? Are you lost?" This time, he raised his bright blue eyes in my direction and seemed to look right through me. The man said, "No, son, I think I've found my way." He gave me a sad smile, shook his head, and moved from the doorway toward the direction of the ER. So I got up and went to the open door and looked down the long hallway, didn't see anyone. I then checked the adjoining hallways, the 2 X-ray suites, even our file room, no trace of anybody. Being a little confused, I went back down the hall to the ER department to check on my co-worker's progress, shaking my head the whole way. When I finally got to the nurse's desk, I asked an RN friend if she'd seen a man I described. She gave me a funny look, said he was in trauma room 1, where my partner was supposed to be performing the emergency chest X-ray. I went to the trauma room door, walked in, just in time to see the physician declare the time of death on the man I saw in the X-ray control room not more than 15 minutes prior. Needless to say, I must have looked like the one who was white as a ghost. Robbie from Phoenix, Arizona. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Art. This is Beverly from Dayton, Ohio.
Hi, Beverly.
Yes, I would like to share one of my spooky moments.
Go right ahead.
Well, back in the mid-70s, when The Exorcist first came out, my husband and I bought a home, and it was in the country in a lovely setting, and the newness of the home, every evening when I was fixing supper, the basement door would open up.
All by itself?
All by itself. And I thought, well, maybe it's just the settling of the house and the change of the season. And but night after night, the door would open right around the same time. And then my son, he would say that there was something that was coming into his room and it was scary.
Oh.
Yeah, and of course you dismiss these types of activities because it's a new home. And then one evening, my husband and I were asleep, and we both had a vision or a dream. At the same time, we saw our daughter being raised up out of her bed and slammed to the floor.
And you both had this dream at the same moment?
At the same moment, and the whole house shook, and we flew up out of bed and ran to her room, and there she was on the floor, but she was sound asleep and unharmed, and we knew then we had an entity in the home.
What did you do? Did you remain in that home?
Well, eventually I did move out, but we got holy water. I threw away my book, The Exorcist.
I don't know what I'd do. I doubt that I'd remain in the home. I'd get buckets of holy water. I'm not sure what I would do.
Well, one of the things that people with knowledge how to release demons or entities recommended flushing each room with holy water. And then they said a lot of times there might be a new toy or something that you've brought in the home because these entities like to hide in objects. There was one particular teddy bear that was fairly new and handmade that was a gift to my daughter. And I never felt comfortable with this teddy bear. So my husband, when I had mentioned that to him, he instantly grabbed the teddy bear, threw it in the fireplace.
My goodness. Teddy bears, dolls, it's not been a good night for toys.
Really? And but the unusual thing, you would think by handmade stuff teddy bear, it would be consumed in just a few minutes. It took hours for this teddy bear to burn. And the fire would dance from eye to eye back and forth.
I'd be so out of that house.
Well, in a few months I did leave. But the children and I, we vacated. We found another place to live.
Oh, that'd be it. I'll tell you, if we had dual dreams, my name found our daughter on the floor, that would be it right there. But,
Yeah.
thank you very much for the call.
Thank you so much.
Take care. That's a freaky one. Can you imagine that, having a dual dream about your daughter raising out of bed, being slammed to the floor, and then going in the other room and finding her, albeit asleep, on the floor? Well, Caroline, you're on the air. Good morning.
I was thinking, I wasn't expecting to take a drinking orange juice. That's stuck. Hey there. I got a good one for you.
Fire away.
Okay. My family owned a funeral home, and I actually really didn't think of it as a ghost story until I thought about it, but I really didn't believe it yet. About 3 years into my career, done plenty of removals, went to plenty of hospitals, and plenty of morgues, lived in plenty of homes. But this one peculiar situation came up where we were actually hired to remove a man from a hospital who was being frozen, quite honest. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but...
Oh, I know about the procedure, sure.
And, so I was on death watch that night. He was actually close to death for 3 days. And it's just a matter of waiting for him to take his last breath for the doctor to actually pronounce him, and then they give him a lethal shot of barbiturates and hook him up to a respirator, a heart lung respirator, which actually pounds on his chest. Well, we did that, and not even thinking anything of it. I did the removal. I put him on the gurney, strapped in the gurney. This machine's pumping.
Mike, let me stop you for a second. I don't quite understand the procedure. In other words, the doctor pronounces him dead.
Correct.
Okay, but then he's given a lethal shot.
Lethal injection of barbiturate.
Why would that be necessary?
Well, from my understanding, because the heart-lung machine is put on almost immediately after he's pronounced dead.
All right. Okay.
And I asked the same question. I mean, I'm thinking the same thing, but I'm not really thinking this until about what I'm about to tell you actually happened. Anyways, I put him in the car. He's in the gurney. We're in the station wagon. The machine's pumping in the back, and I, turn on the radio, and I'm just driving along, and all of a sudden, in my mind, I hear kind of a moan. And I look in the rearview mirror, and I shook my head, and then again, I heard this, where are we going? And I look in the rearview mirror, and it was kind of like a ghostly image, but it was like, I turn around, and it's not there, but I can see him actually sit up. And I turned around, and I shook my head, this is in my head. I turned the radio off. As I turned the radio off, it got louder. Where are we going? And I pulled the car over, I put it in park, and I turned the radio off, and I said, you've got to be kidding me.
Right.
And no, I said it out loud. I said, you have got to be kidding me. I said, I've been doing this for 3 years. And I said, I do one thing that is different, and can you hear me talking? He goes, yeah, where are we going? I said, well, we're going to the funeral home. He goes, no, we're not supposed to go to the funeral home. I said, well, where are we supposed to go? He goes, I'm supposed to just wake up and be well again. I said, wow. I said, this is wrong what we're doing. He goes, well, what have I done? And I explained it, so I'm sitting there in the car talking.
So you're having a full conversation with a dead man?
Well, that's going through my head. I was like, well, is he dead? I'm sorry?
If you're having that kind of conversation, I'd be turning around or something. I mean...
I did. I turned around. Every time I would turn around...
I don't mean turn around in the car. I mean turn around and head back to the hospital. If you're having that kind of conversation with somebody... Anyway, you go ahead.
No, I know. It wasn't with him in his physical body, though. Because in the mirror, I can see him sit up, and I can visually, see him. But when I turned around, the machine's just going. But the weird thing was I didn't feel fear. I thought as I look back, I should have been running out of the car, screaming and yelling.
Yeah.
But this guy, and I knew this guy was stuck because he realized, and I realized, I felt horrible because we got paid a lot of money just to put this machine on this guy, and then bring him back to the funeral home, pack him at night, put him in an ambulance, we put him to nitrogen, And the thing is I actually had to coerce him to go, because he was in the States. He was going to stay in the funeral. And my dad, I really haven't told the story to anybody, but my dad asked me, he goes, what's wrong with you? I said, what we did tonight was wrong. I said, this man is what he's expecting of this cryonics is not, I know for sure it's not going to work. Because he's stuck. He was
obviously this man thought it was going to work.
Yes, he did. And yeah, he was going to stay. He was hanging out at the funeral home when the ambulance took up. I said, he can't stay here.
Well, how did you finish up the conversation with the man?
I'm sorry?
How did you finish up the conversation with the man?
With telling him that he must go with his body in the ambulance and he needs to figure out his path. I mean, it was weird, but I told him that he couldn't, I've never dealt with anything like this before, he couldn't stay with me. It wasn't like he wanted to stay with me, he was stuck. It was like traumatic for him. It was like
the last body I'd ever drawn.
But it was freaking, that was the last chronic situation we put ourselves into.
That's an amazing story. Just absolutely amazing. And how you kept your cool through that, I'll never know.
It was strange because I didn't, in my mind, and throughout my career, I had actually put out in my mind, you know what, there's got to be no such thing as ghosts, because I deal with bodies every day, fresh death in situations, and I've never, ever, anything. And that's when I heard him say, where are we going? And I saw him sit up in the rearview mirror. I pulled over and I said, you've got to be kidding me.
All right, sir, I really appreciate the story. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, maybe there's something different about the expectation of a spirit that was, well, frankly, expecting to wake up in good health. In other words, he was expecting to be cryonically frozen and wake up one day in the far future, healthy and probably wealthy if he had good investments. But instead, he woke up on the way to the cryonics lab, neither here nor there. That is a great story. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hey, Art, how's it going?
It's getting very interesting, sir. Go right ahead.
Okay, I guess you could call it a haunted house story. There was a farmhouse near where I grew up, big old house, and dated back to like the 1800s. But people had lived there on and off in the 1970s, and then it was vacant, and it was kind of set back on a dirt road. And, we were teenagers and back in the early 80s, and we went there one night, and it was a big old house, and it wasn't really dilapidated or run down. It was just nobody had lived there for a while. And I've been there a couple times, and I was showing my friends around, and there was 6 of us, 3 boys and 3 girls, and 2 of the boys, friends of mine were farm boys, and down in the basement of this place was old, beat up, broken down old antique tractor, and they were down there looking at it, and me and the 3 girls were upstairs, and I was showing them, this place is pretty big, and it had like some old servants' quarters, which I thought was kind of neat, and I was showing them that, and so we were on the 2nd floor, and all of a sudden we heard this huge noise, big kaboom, smash, and someone was down the stairs, obviously, and we ran out to look, and something or someone had thrown the toilet from the 2nd floor bathroom down the stairs. Now, we didn't hear it getting ripped out of the floor or anything. It was bolted into the floor. I remember that. There was no water, of course, hooked up. But while we were up there, something had torn that toilet out of the floor, carried it down the hall past us. We didn't hear anything. It threw it down the stairs. And
anything that could rip a toilet bolted in right out of the floor and then throw it down the stairs is nothing to be trifled with.
Right, and like I said, we didn't hear it get torn out of the floor or anything like that. We just heard it go down the stairs, about 5 feet away from us. We were like,
yeah.
And the kids in the basement came running up, and the girls, of course, they wanted the light out of there as quick as could be. And I'll tell you what, I was the first one out the door myself.
I was going to say, when it comes to that kind of thing, there's not a lot of difference between guys and gals.
No, well, we can run faster, and I'll tell you what,
that's it. And so this thing was just hit to the bottom of the steps, and that's when you took off. Well, For once, I agree. I would have done the exact same thing.
Hey, happy Halloween, Art.
Well, happy Halloween to you, sir. Anyway, Art, in the mid-90s, we sold our rural home, moved into a small town of about 6,000 people. We rented a quaint little house located beside a small church and graveyard in the center of town. We moved in 1 week before Halloween. Our 4 children were eager to decorate for the occasion and decked out the house and yard, including headstones on the lawn and a hangman's noose, which was suspended from a large willow tree beside the front door, including a very realistic dead man. We bought tons of goodies in anticipation of the throngs of ghouls that would visit that night. We came and went without one ghoul racing our door, even though we observed dozens of them greedily shuffling from door to door across the street. By midnight, we were feeling a bit rejected, very rejected. Turned into the night only to be awakened by a blood-curdling scream coming from downstairs. I rushed to the stairs to find our 11-year-old daughter trembling in fear and staring up at something. I glanced up to see a hangman's noose suspended from seemingly nothing. It hung there a few seconds and then fell to the stairs, totally freaking us all out. Needless to say, no one got any sleep that night. The next day I found what everyone else obviously already knew. Apparently we were living in the old church rectory in which a former pastor of the neighboring church had hung himself. That's from Eileen in Alberta, Canada. So, as you can readily see, whether it be a layman or a priest, if the death comes in an unseemly way, a suicide, or in some unexpected quick way, perhaps a body to be frozen forevermore and then awakened one day, healthy, wealthy, if not wise. Look out, folks. Isn't it fascinating? We all hope, even pray, that there's a life after this one. And yet, we don't seem all that thrilled when we hear or see evidence of it. Has that ever occurred to you? You write that. The following is from Elizabeth in Morris Plains, New Jersey. My mother and I had to stay with my grandparents during World War II. My father was drafted when I was 9 months old, and he didn't come home till I was just about 5. My grandfather owned and he managed a funeral home. The first floor of a very large Victorian mansion. Mom and I lived on the 3rd floor, along with an aunt and an uncle who was in the Air Force Station locally, so he could come home for the weekend. My grandparents' apartment was the entire 2nd floor, along with my youngest aunt. Grandpa told me when I was very young that, quote, these people are nice folks. They wouldn't hurt you. They wouldn't hurt you when you were alive, and they won't do so now. I said, okay. I was confident he told me the truth, at least until I was about 11. I made the usual walk through the casket showroom where an older man was getting ready for his family's visit. With all the hair on my head and body standing straight up, and I just knew that man was staring at me. I did a bit of whistling as I dashed out of the room and tore up the stairs to the safety of my grandmother. That night, I awoke in the very early morning hours, and there he was, standing at the foot of my bed, staring right at me. I took a deep breath and slowly pulled the covers over my head. I did not go to sleep. My ears were on super sensitive settings all night, waiting for him to make his move. It was completely terrifying. I could barely breathe and my heart was pounding. His funeral was held at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they finally dragged his sorry ass to the cemetery. I have never in my life been so terrified. Now I'm 64 years of age. I've always wondered what his problem was. I've got a theory he was a child molester who couldn't figure out how to work with his new situation. Death. I hope he stays planted. My 2nd floor bed was directly above his 1st floor casket. I would never again, never agree to sleep over another soul who had passed over. Too risky. right ahead.
Okay, so, Art. Well, I am living in Austin, Texas right now. My name is Jessica, and I am from Victoria, BC, Canada originally. And my story is about there. A couple years ago, I was going to art school and had a part-time job at a grocery store. And a part of our art lessons were to go out into various parts of Victoria and like draw buildings and such things like that. So one field trip we went to a grave site and we started drawing, tombstones and stuff. So I remember I sat down. Sorry, I'm older. Anyways, I sat down and I started drawing this tombstone and this lady. There was a lady's name on there. Anyways, I started drawing it, and that's not the whole story. But a couple weeks later, I'm working at the grocery store, and I was pretty much the only one there. It was a really small grocery store, and I'm sitting there with another cashier, and in walks this lady, and I can't see her because I have my back to the door. But the other cashier that I was working with, like, we were talking, blah, blah, and she looked at me like she was so freaked out. So I turn around, and I look, and I see this weird lady with this long black dress on. I'm totally not lying. She was wearing this long black dress, long, shaggy hair, gross-looking skin, like grayish tones. And like, I'm an artist, so I can tell, like, people's skin tones. Anyway, she freaked me out so much. Like, that was not what regular people look like. So I screamed and ran away. That was like my first instinct, just scream and run away. I couldn't believe it. And once I realized that I had screamed and ran away from this lady that I'm supposed to help, like I'm in a grocery store, I realized I went back and said, back to close myself, and I said, can I help you? And she's like, I don't know where I am, like in this really creepy voice. So I was like so freaked out by this lady. I looked at her, and it was really close, and her eyes looked like they were just held up by two sticks, like it was like bugging out of her face. And I said, you don't know where you are, let me tell you your tag. So I said, what's your name? And she said, it's Elizabeth. And just a couple weeks earlier, when I was drawing this tombstone, I remember what the name of that lady was, and there were fresh flowers there, and it looked like it was a fairly fresh grave, and that name was Elizabeth. And I was so freaked out by this lady. Like, she did not look like she was walking. She looked like she was floating. Like, she had no footsteps at all, and just like shook me up so much. It's been like 5 years, so I still get freaked out when I think about her.
Maybe by drawing that tombstone, you essentially called Elizabeth.
I have no idea, but I do know that Victoria, where I'm from in Canada, in the whole Pacific Northwest up there, is really, really big on witchcraft. And like, I don't know if I had just seen, that parallel between the living and the dead, but that person that I saw that like hovered at me was not human. And I don't really tell that story very much because, like, obviously I don't think people are going to take me seriously, but my first instinct, and I heard you were talking about this earlier, Art, was to scream and run. And I did. And I don't do that with people who are living and alive,
I hear you. All right, thanks for the story. I really appreciate it. If something like that happened to me, if an obviously dead person was in front of me, floating in front of me with gray skin and eyes that just didn't look, I don't know, human, alive, I'd scream, I'd run, I'm sure I would. Eastwood Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hi, Art. That's what I'm today.
Yes, sir. In a truck, I bet, right?
I'm a trucker. Just off in blue, but I've got a good story.
Okay.